So we have to Pashat sit down. If you're a shliach or if you're a chassid that's really a shliach of the Rebbe, every Yid is a shliach. Pashat to mizbeinin, to think about who the Rebbe is. Who do we stand for? What's Chassidus? What's Chassidus Chabad? What's Chassidus Bechlal? What's Yiddishkeit? What's the Eibishter? What's the Rebbe? And what's the Rebbe of our generation? Who is he? What does he stand for? What does he represent? And I was chosen. I just saw someone posted a sikha. The Rebbe said how from all the billion people, the Eibishter chose a few people and gave them his Torah. Out of all the billions of people, the Eibishter chose us and made us Chassidus Chabad and made us in Dor Hashvii. And gave us the Rebbe, out of all the Rabbeim, Chassidus Chabad gave us the last Rebbe, the Rebbe of Dor Hashvii. And the Rebbe of Dor Hashvii takes each one of us and chooses each one of us and says, your job and your mission in this world is to bring the ultimate purpose of creation into this world. And it's not pshat, a Yid in Russia, you have to believe there's the concept of Dira B'Tachtenim. We see it happening in front of our eyes.
I'm Yossi Kamen. Welcome to Among Chassidim by Der Her, an ongoing farbrengen about life as a chassid, our vibrant connection with the Rebbe, and inspired living shaped by the way he teaches us each and every day. This episode is dedicated to Nishmas Harav Sadia ben Rav Mordechai Olav Shalom Dahan and the Refuah Shlema for Chana Bas Nechamed Dina by Shaul and Shendi Dahan. Mendy Greenberg, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, how are you, Rabbi Yossi?
Baruch Hashem, I'm doing good. Shekech for making the time, and it's a lot to talk about, a lot we can talk about. So I hope you're ready.
My pleasure. For the Deher, anything.
Okay. So there's a lot of things we can talk about, but I think I see behind you. You have, is that a proclamation?
Yep, correct.
That's a local proclamation. That's a state proclamation.
Yeah, it's the Alaska State Legislature proclamation for this year.
For the Rebbe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I think we should talk about, because Baruch Hashem, you're multifaceted, but I know that you have a special kach in this whole idea of making proclamations. Right? Proclamations were for the Rebbe's birthday, B'Aleph Nisan, and so what's going on? Why is that so important to Bechlal and important to you? What's the story?
Well, do you want me to go back to how I started getting kocht in this? Should I start from there, or should I just speak about the Indian? Okay.
No. So you should say it the way you want to say it.
Okay. So I guess I'll say it. I'll give it my personal how I personally got into this thing. So actually, it was from my first years on Shlichus. We're right now on Shlichus here in this area. Like I moved on Shlichus when I was 1 year old to Alaska, but I'm saying like since I came here with my Rebbetzin and we started a Chabad house, our own Chabad house. We're this summer we're celebrating 10 years. So in our first years of Shlichus here, so I used to bring my children to the preschool in the Chabad house in Anchorage. So I was driving a lot. So the one advantage of driving in and out was that I had a lot of time in the car, which meant that Baruch Hashem was on the group that Mendel Scharf has. Maybe some people are familiar with it. He has a WhatsApp group for many years already, that every week he posts a farbrengen of the Rebbe. So even though everyone can listen to farbrengens all the time, but everyone listens together to a certain farbrengen. So unfortunately, now I'm not that involved in that group. But then when I was driving a lot, I was listening a lot to farbrengens. So I don't remember what it was for my second year in Shlichus, whatever. Anyway, they were listening to the farbrengens of the year of Tafshin Lamed Ches. Now, the year of Tafshin Lamed Ches is the year of the heart attack, which Hagam, one of the things that we were one of the gifts. It's hard to say a gift, but one of the things that we have from Tafshin Lamed Ches, Tafshin Lamed Tes, is 2 full years of Shabbos Dike farbrengens that are on Matzah Shabbos. The Rebbe farbrengen instead of on Shabbos afternoon, the Rebbe farbrengen Matzah Shabbos. So
that was due to the fact that was connected to the Rebbe's health
the heart
situation.
Attack. Yeah, and the Rebbe shouldn't have to strain himself to speak louder without a mic. So this way, the Rebbe could speak Matzah Shabbos. In the beginning, initially, the Rebbe was farbrengen from his room. The Rebbe was saying Sichos and Maimonim from his room for Meshach Zman.
Even that was being played downstairs.
that people heard downstairs, and obviously was hooked up as well to the whole world. But that started already from Matzah Simchas Torah, and the Sichas started getting longer and longer and longer. And even after Rosh Chodesh Kislev, when the Rebbe went home, there were still Sichas and Farbrengens from the Rebbe's room. And even after Yutis Kislev, when the Rebbe came downstairs, I think the first time to Farbring with the Eilam, there still were Sichas from his room. But anyway, the bottom line is the Rebbe was Farbringing Matzah Shabbos, but even after the Rebbe stopped Farbringing from his room, all the Farbrengens were changed to Matzah Shabbos instead of Shabbos afternoon. So you could listen to full mamish 2 years of Farbrengens of Shabbos, like a Shabbos style Farbrengen, Rashi Sichas and Pirkei Avos Sichas, the two Sichas before the Maimonim. Anyway, it's a very, very, very geschmack of 2 years, and it's just amazing. It's amazing stuff that we have. Anyway, so that year they were listening to the Farbrengens of Tav Shalom and Ches. So I tried listening every week to that week's Farbrengen, and then I heard the Farbrengen of Yud Aleph Nisan Tav Shalom and Ches. And that was the first year that the U.S. Legislator, the House, the Senate made a joint resolution, and the President, Jimmy Carter, signed a proclamation that the Rebbe's birthday, Yud Aleph Nisan, will be Education Day USA. Now, and then the Rebbe speaks about it. I would say probably the majority of the Farbrengen. It wasn't such a long Farbrengen, maybe because of Tav Shalom and Ches, maybe because of the year. There were 3 or 4 Sichas that Farbrengen. The majority of the Farbrengen is dedicated to Education Day. And I always knew about Education Day before. I always knew that happens, but I never understood. And I also knew the Rebbe spoke about it. The Rebbe thanked the president for the honor, but I never realized ad kedei how much this was by the Rebbe like a thing. This was like, and I heard the Farbrengen. A push was going out of my kalim. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like the Rebbe started speaking about how this. The Rebbe started saying that this is a new shlav in the haschala and the emtza of the kulam shachem echad. Basically, that this Education Day is like a new shlav in the coming of Mashiach. Like to me, that when I heard that, I was like, whoa! Like this is not just my great uncle Avraham Moshe had an idea. I made Education Day, and the Rebbe appreciated it. The Rebbe said thank you to the president. This is something that the Rebbe saw as extremely crucial to the whole purpose of Moshiach, which is the purpose, obviously, of creation and the purpose of Chassidus Chabad.
What did the Rebbe explain? Why is that part of it?
The Rebbe was explaining that basically that the fact that the Malchus Achia Dira Ba'elam, the superpower of the world, United States, which is, in other words, represents all of humanity, basically. The Rebbe explained many times that all countries all over the world look up to the United States they follow them, they follow their lead, they follow their initiatives. The fact that they should declare the importance of education, and that ad kedei kach to designate a unique day special for this concept. Later on, the Rebbe spoke much. Later on, it became much more clear that it was about. And the years later, through President Reagan, President Bush, was openly about Sheva Mitzvos Bnei Noach, and about the Eibishter, and about the 10 Commandments. But even then, in Tav Shalom and Ches, when that wasn't that clear, the Rebbe made it very clear that the entire purpose is to bring an awareness with education of children that without emunah, without belief in God, without belief in the Eibishter, that's the Yesod of Chinuch, and that's the whole purpose of Education Day, to bring an awareness by all students, by all children, that education is not just an education of information, of knowledge, of reading, writing, math, science, history, v'chulu, but the foundation and the most important part of education is education of that there's an eye that sees and ear that hears, that there's a creator of the world, that each person has a purpose, and the world is not a jungle, and yet yesh balabais l'birazu. There's order in this world, and the Eibishter is watching every single thing everyone does, and therefore children all humanity have to make decisions based on this idea. The leitirtzach, leitinov, not to murder, not to steal, v'chulu. Basically, to be moral and upright, standing people is all founded on the idea of emunah and Hashem. And the Rebbe went on to explain barichas. The Rebbe said, where does this come from? To make one day for education, l'chayr is a mitzvah. To every education is always a mitzvah. So what's up is one day? And then Rebbe starts giving proofs from Pesach, from Shavuos, from Rosh Hashanah. So what's Pesach? Zeich l'tzias Mitzrayim. L'chayr, every day there's a mitzvah, Zeich l'tzias Mitzrayim. And Afal Pikein, we designate one day to celebrate Mitzrayim. And the Rebbe said, Derech Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is Kabbalah Tzel Malch Shemaim. Every day you have to have Kabbalah Tzel Malch Shemaim. Elamai, 1 day a year is designated. That is the ikir focus. Kabbalah Samach Shemaim. So the Rebbe said the same thing with chinuch. The Rebbe gives dugmayas from Pesach, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Tovim from Deraisa, from Minat Torah, to give like hechachis and rayas why it's appropriate to designate 1 day for chinuch. So I don't know. I just walked out of the and there's so much more to say about it if I bring it. But anyway,
that's why it's an integral part of the coming of Mashiach, because that's what Mashiach is. Kulim Yedu Eisi, that is going to be people, the knowledge of the Eibishter, all of the
that all of humanity, and the fact, and who's recognizing this? In other words, like so to speak, the king of the world. In other words, the king of Umas Olam, the king, the leading force, the leading power, all of humanity, and from money wise, from power, from influence. And the United States says that this is something that's essential. It has ashpa on the entire world. And the Rebbe doesn't say it there. The Rebbe doesn't say clearly. In later years, it's much more clear how it's connected specifically to the Rebbe and to Yudalef Nissen. But it's self-understood. And the Rebbe, anyway, so I walked out of the listening to that Fabring, and I was pasha blown away. And one of the first things that was bothering me was like, how does not every single citizen of the United States know about Education Day? The Rebbe is saying that this is a serious shlav in the coming of Mashiach, and this happens every single year. I mean, how many people know about it? And how many Lubavitchers know that the president every year puts out a new proclamation? At least at that time, I mean, it was, and like this is to the Rebbe, this is extremely important. Like, why doesn't everyone know about it? And I remember I was talking to friends on WhatsApp and this and that. What can we do? How can we make it? Anyway, make it edveg them, and it kind of stayed in the world of talk. Fine. Then came Chaf Av, and we were listening to the Fabringen of Chaf Av Tafshan Lamed Ches. And all of a sudden, the Rebbe starts speaking about Education Day. And the Rebbe says, just like a few months ago, the United States Congress and the President declared that there's Education Day. So the Rebbe says this should be replicated in every single country, state, city, basically any type of government body throughout the world should do what the federal government in America did. And the Rebbe starts explaining that it's very easy now that it was already done. It's easy to convince other countries and other people to follow, because the United States has such an influence on the entire world. People will follow the lead of the United States, and I'm hearing this, and again, I'm blown away. The Rebbe is saying that every single city, every single state, everyone should do Education Day. And that, to me, I was like, okay, now I know exactly what I was complaining. Why no one knows about Education Day? So right away, I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm meant to do.
You're saying till then you didn't realize that it was. You thought it's just done on the on the government level, the federal government. You didn't realize that it's for every locale. Should happen as well. Okay,
that's right. So till then, I didn't know how exactly could I help what happens in Washington. I have nothing to do with Washington, but now I say, okay, in my little city, and someone could say, what's the big deal? Your little city, you should do it. Yeah, the Rebbe said every single city. So I was speaking to Chavedim after that, and I was like, does the Rebbe mean like we have to do this? And anyway, you know how it works. So before. When things weren't done for a long time, so people never heard of it. No one ever did it. No one saw. No one this.
But was it done then?
It was done at the time in Tafshan Lamed Ches. I mean, later on I found out. I did my research. Yeah, after Tafshan Lamed, and then when the Rebbe spoke about it, many cities and many states, and for sure in the United States did it. In Israel it was done. The Minister of Education put out a proclamation for Education Day in Tafshan Lamed Ches. I don't know about other states, other countries, but anyway, it was definitely done then. And then throughout the years, throughout the MEMS and the NUNs, many shluchim in cities and states and different countries did Education Day, and there's answers from the Rebbe about it, and yachas from the Rebbe, and letters from the Rebbe. The mayor of Tel Aviv, a few times, Rabbi Gerlitzky arranged that there should be Education Day, and the Rebbe sent chashva letters about it. So there's actually Alaska. There's a very sharp answer about Bachram that did Education Day in Alaska on Shabbos. Wasn't their fault. I mean, they didn't realize, but the Rebbe was very sharp about the fact that it was done on Shabbos. And you could have said, how many people even knew?
They were doing different dates. They weren't doing the offensive.
So first of all, when the Rebbe spoke Tafshin Lamed Ches, Chaf Av, it wasn't
after.
Yud Aleph Nisan. The Rebbe
Right.
said, the Rebbe actually said they should do it before the new year, before the new school year. So the Nekuda was to designate a day, and all the proclamations always connected it to the Rebbe. It was always an honor of the Rebbe, no matter what day was in the year. So Bachrim came American Shlichus to Alaska in Tafshin Mem Daled. So they were here in the summer. So they had a meeting with the governor. Two Bachrim had a meeting with the governor. So Yalla, they made actually it was called Rabbi Schneerson Day. And they called Maskirus to find out what day should they do it. So someone in Maskirus told them, Chayel is coming. Yom Haledes of the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov. Chayel is a good day, without realizing that Chayel that year was on Shabbos. They got the idea from Maskirus. It wasn't their idea. So when they sent it into the Rebbe wrote a long answer, very sharp. Basically, how no one realized that this is on Shabbos. The Rebbe says most of the things that are done to honor a special day in the United States are connected with Chilul Shabbos, whether it's writing an article or calling phone calls or Mazel Tov or this or that. And this is all done in the name of Chinuch Bnei Yisrael. I guess Merkez Niyan Chinuch. This is in the name of Chinuch Bnei Yisrael.
It's Education Day.
Education, yeah.
Okay.
And this is done in the name of Lubavitch and the name of this. They didn't say his name, obviously, but the name today is Rabbi Schneerson Day. Very sharp, and Mavil, basically it showed how, to me, even though it's a sharp answer, it shows how serious the Rebbe takes it. So a cynic could say, how many people even knew about that proclamation in Alaska? The governor made a proclamation. It wasn't printed in the papers. I mean, I don't think so. How many people even knew about it? And yet to the Rebbe it was Chilul Shabbos. So it basically it was something that the Rebbe sees as extremely important. Anyway, so back to Alaska. Anyway, so L'Poel Tachlis, I put together a nusach of a proclamation. I sent it, probably was till I got the courage to do it. I sent to the mayor probably 2 weeks before Yud Aleph Nisan, to the mayor of Palmer, Alaska. Palmer, Alaska has maybe 8,000 official residents. And I sent it to my mayor, and I asked mayor, would you be able to do a proclamation? And she emailed me, yes, sure, we will do it. So I made a screenshot of that email, and I sent it to mamish friends or cousins, and boom, a bunch of shluchim started copying it. They started doing the same thing. They asked me for the nusach, whatever, and that's it. That's how the ball started rolling. And years in the following years, there was all the governors of all the states, different countries, different cities, whatever. Hundreds and hundreds of proclamations since then became very common. Again, this is nothing new. It's not a chiddush. This was happening for many years before Gimel Tammuz. For whatever reason, it was
chiddush hayeshanis, taking something that people kind of forgot about and making sure that, and every year Yud Aleph Nisan, I think since then there's been a big awareness amongst shluchim and others that have influence to make sure that it happens, that these proclamations actually are issued. Because ultimately they're done on a local level, so it needs someone to make ma'ir that it should happen. So before we get in, I want to know a little bit more about like the philosophy behind education. Just on a practical level, I think the Rebbe once said that the Rebbe's vision for it is that it should be as popular as Mother's Day or something. Is that what the Rebbe said?
I think that the Rebbe in the English Sikha from Tafshin Lamed Ches, there's a lashon saying that the Rebbe believes that that Education Day will help enforce the days that already exist in the United States, like Father's Day and Mother's Day. That it will enhance and it will help. The Rebbe basically saw it as it will work very well. I guess that's how the Rebbe was explaining how it's going to be good for the world, that it will be good for the United States, that it's going to enhance the current culture of the United States and make it better. By the way, one of the things the Rebbe said in that Sechel Lamed Ches was that because the halacha is that dina de machusa dina, that the law of the land is according to halacha. When the local government makes a law, as long as it's not contradicting to Torah law, then every Jew is obligated to follow that law. So because it was a law made by the U.S. government, Education Day al Pei Halacha is binding on every Yid. So in other words, the Rebbe is saying, even the Rebbe basically says, al pi halacha, because the government did it and because it's not a stira to Torah, so therefore it has a gather of halacha to follow, to celebrate or to recognize whatever education day.
Is there what's when something becomes like a legal holiday? What is that? That's like another level of legislation. Like what's the details? How that happens? Do you know?
I don't know. I guess there's different levels of stuff. There's legal holidays. I think there's no work, right?
Right. No, I'm saying is the vision for Education Day to be not only the proclamations, but eventually that it should, I don't know, be printed on every calendar, let's say, or something like, that it's an official holiday in the United States.
Um,
I'm asking if you understand what the Rebbe's vision for it is.
I think that what the Rebbe said. I'll tell you what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe says it's a day to be mizbeinen in the purpose of education. The Rebbe spoke about putting out pamphlets with ideas, explaining the purpose of education. So it's a time to bring an awareness of the importance of education and and what does it mean education? The real purpose of education, which is education on morals and values that are miyusad, that are founded on faith in God and keeping the mitzvos that are relevant to all humanity, to all the to also Sheva mitzvah Bnei Noach. And the Rebbe spoke in Israel, when the Rebbe wrote letters to the mayor of Tel Aviv, for instance. He connected it to Matan Torah, that the whole chinuch is about Matan Torah and the Aseres Adibris and the Taryag Mitzvos. So in other words, for Jews, it's to mischazik and chinuch of doing what Jews have to do, and for the nations of the world, it's to mischazik what the nations of the world have to do, their obligation.
So maybe we're brainstorming over here, just trying to legitimately understand it. Perhaps the next frontier in advancing Education Day is to figure out what legislation needs to happen to make it like an official holiday. Is that something that anyone ever, to your knowledge, has anyone ever explored that?
I don't know. One of the issues I do know is that the day changes every single year because it's on the Rebbe's Hebrew birthday. So every year the date is different, which makes it more complicated, I think, to designate a day. I know for sure, Mashal, by me in our local state legislator. So the proclamations from the governor and from mayors happen all the time, and even what I have behind me is like a proclamation of the state legislator. But I also tried getting resolutions, like an official resolution. So one year I did it, but it was spent months and months going through committees, agabe committees. I know different states don't. It's not that complicated to do a resolution, but by me the resolutions take, I don't know. It went through months and months of committees and meetings and votings, and it took a long time. So one of the things that the legislators that I'm close with said, we should put this in the system. We should do it once, and it should be official. And this is make one resolution for 100 years. But then the problem came. Well, the date changes every year. So then one of the ideas was maybe let's just put in, this day and this day and this day and this day and this day for the next 100 years is education day as a resolution. Anyway, we never got to that yet. But it could be that might be one of the issues of making a holiday. I don't know. I'm not.
Okay, so this is something to explore. We'll let those that think that they might understand what the Rebbe's kavanah is to figure out that this is something to explore and figure out who has to do that. I mean,
I could say is.
I would think it's the next step. I don't know for sure.
I'll tell you. I honestly don't think it's so much anymore about the proclamations or what the governments do. In other words, that obviously should be done, but it's more about, put it this way: Father's Day and Mother's Day is a mitzvos in America, whether or not the president puts out a proclamation.
There's also no right.
It's the culture. It's part of the culture. And by the way, I'm not even sure if they put out a proclamation every year. There's a lot of days that became days in the United States that there's no proclamations for it on a yearly basis. In other words, it has a life of its own. This is Father's Day, this is Mother's Day, and celebrated, and all the companies hop on it. Which, by the way, the last few years, if you make some research, you'll see different random companies put out announcements, social media announcements for Education Day. I don't know if you saw. In the last few years, it's catching on, and there are random coffee shops, this thing, that thing. They put out Education Day, Happy Education Day, something about education, random places. Which Grade also a few years ago, there was an organization on behalf of the UN they made an entire event on Zoom in honor of 40 years of Education Day. I actually spoke to the guy who arranged it. Someone that's not Jewish. He had nothing to do with Lubavitch. He never spoke to any shliach. He found out about Education Day, and they made an entire event, all from the top to the bottom, ran by people that are not Jewish, on behalf of a certain organization, on behalf of the UN, all about Education Day, and they speak about the Rebbe there. They say it's all about the Rebbe and who the Rebbe is, v'chulu v'chulu. So it's something that. In other words, my point I'm trying to say is that ultimately the point is it's how much we, the Rebbe Shluchim, and in general people, bring this idea to the world and get it really, that the Olam, the regular Amadabar, the regular crowd connects to these ideas and celebrates these ideas and implements these ideas. I think that's really where the focus should be. That should be a inyan pnimi. It should be a real thing that's part of American culture and the global culture.
So what did you do locally, like to help celebrate or spread the word about Education Day in your community?
So what? For instance, one of the things that we do here, but every single. So I go to every. So in my shlichus, my shlichus is the Matsu Valley. It's a big section, a big area in Alaska. Anyway, so there are 4 official cities within the Matsu. So I go to every single from beginning of Adar. I try to get it done early. I go to every single city council meeting. I go to the borough meeting. I go from meeting to meeting to meeting, where they present the proclamation. I give a speech about the Rebbe and about Education Day, about Sheva Mitzvah Noach. Also in our location, thanks to the Hisaydus about Education Day, I also I connected with the school district, and we have moment of silence here. So I speak about moment of silence as well, and what should be done by the moment of silence. Anyway, and then at the end, I give out to everybody the ark, the yellow ark, the tzedakah box. For those who are not familiar, it stands for acts of routine kindness, and we give it out. We give out the tzedakah box.
Routine, not random.
Routine, yeah, routine kindness, with a card. I should have had it here, but anyway, the card with the Rebbe's picture on it, explaining the connection to Education Day, and explaining that one of the ways to educate our children with morals and values is by teaching them the meaning of tzedakah. And it resonates with people in an unbelievable way. You tell them that the idea of charity is not. Most people see charity as, if someone that has a lot of money, you can write a big check to an organization. But you say no, that the idea of tzedakah is also for the giver. That when you train a child, a little kid, which naturally children and Bechal people think about themselves. You see kids playing; they want everything for themselves. So to train a kid to give away something from themselves to someone else. The Rebbe explains that's mechanech the kid to have more fear of Hashem, to have more honor to their parents, honor to their teachers, how they treat other children. And the Rebbe explained many times that the idea of tzedakah is part of the Sheva Mitzvah Noach, and it's relevant to all nations of the world. So it's something that's universal. And the Rebbe said also in Tafshin Beis to CNN to add increasing acts of goodness and kindness to make Moshiach come. So this was something. The idea of tzedakah is relevant to all people. So anyway, so we give out to all the members of people sitting on the council, to the mayor, to all the people sitting in the room at the meetings. You give them out the tzedakah box with the Rebbe's picture, and it's unbelievable. It has a meidik effect on people. People love it. People are very inspired by it. I go back to the city's I go for Hanukkah to fill out a form for permission to put up a menorah somewhere, and I see at all the desks in the city hall there's the pushka, and very often also with the Rebbe's picture. I went back to Juneau, the capital of Alaska, 2 years after I was there before. In other words, I went one Eid Alphanis and I came back 2 years later, and I see in many offices the arks with the Rebbe's picture with the card right next to it. So you have people in their offices, pictures of the Rebbe, and the tzedakah pushkas half full, all over the place. It leaves that imprint in tons of areas, and and I talk to people all the time, Jews and non-Jews, and they're very, very inspired by it. That's just one thing we do with the arks. Another thing we do is just this past, I made a whole book signing event for the book Letters for Life that Levi Shmutkin just put out. The Rebbe's letters regarding emotional health and wellness in connection with Education Day. And we partnered with 8 different local organizations in town. Chashuv organizations that deal with youth, that deal with troubled youth, with PR organizations, newspapers, radio stations, and there was 100 people that showed up. There was a nice dinner. There was a program for the children. 100 people showed up for the book, and a few of the organizations that partnered with us, I gave them the book a week before to tell them about it. They came back, they read the entire book, and they spoke at the event. They quoted letters from the Rebbe and spoke about how much the one of them actually cried. She said that her husband died suddenly a few months ago, and it was a very hard time for her, and that this book gave her inspiration and really helped her heal. So anyway, it was to see how the Rebbe's message resonates with every single human being, and inspires them to live better lives, to live more meaningful life. And that is in other words, that's the idea of education day. Ultimately, is basically, as the Rebbe said from Tashlam Ches, la'avdi kulam shechem echad.
So let's talk about the Rebbe's vision
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. We'll go into the vision of this. I mean, we all know. Let's talk about what the accomplishment of shlichus. That the Rebbe, I mean, we're really Chabad is famous. We are reaching out to every single Jew and bringing mekarev every single Jew, no matter what level they're holding in their observance. And there's Chabad houses all over the world to cater to all Jewish needs, physical and spiritual. Chulu v'chulu. There's a whole nother facet to the Rebbe, which I don't know if it's appreciated enough, or maybe doesn't look like it's the main focus, but the Rebbe's vision, which is ultimately, Torah's vision, the way the Rebbe was teaching it for the whole entire world. And obviously, we're looking to change the world because we believe that V'vias HaMashiach b'chol yom, Sho'asa kavina kol hayom, the Mashiach is coming every day. What is Mashiach? Mashiach is going to be the revelation of Hashem in the world, like it says in Yeshaya and many other places. And really, it seems that this is such it's a very big focus of the Rebbe beyond what we can do for our fellow Yidden, Kol Yisrael Arevim, etc. But there's also, everyone likes talking about that the Jewish people, the Ar Lagayim, and we need to be a light on the nations. And the Rebbe, I think, is the first one that really said, let's do this through Education Day, through Moment of Silence, and other methods. And it might not be, even for Chassidim, people might not understand it, be involved in it at all. I don't know, maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what's going on here. Why is this so important?
Yeah. So, first of all, the Rebbe himself speaks about how the idea of Sheva Mitzvos, rubbed many people wrong. And one of the questions was, if this is just similar to Chassidus, what was one of the questions of Chassidus? If this is so important, where was it till now? The Rebbe, the famous answers about that. The same thing. The question was, why didn't my elder Zayda do in Sheva Mitzvos? Why we never heard from Rabbanim? Yeah, Takit Apsak Din and Rambam. Yeah, Takit the Rambam Paskins. The Moshe Tzivam Pia Gvura Har Sinai. That every Yid has to be Lachov Kol Baya Elam to accept Sheva Mitzvos, to influence on all the nations of the world to fulfill the Sheva Mitzvos. But at the end of the day, we never saw anyone doing it. Actually,
the way the Rebbe explained the Rambam, the halachic part of it is that's the halach in the Rambam. We never saw anyone doing it. So the Rebbe said, in previous generations, there would have been persecution, right, if Yidden were teaching non-Jews about God, about the Eibishter. So the Rebbe says, but the Masubav, now that we don't have that obstacle, so the halacha that's brought down in Rambam now applies, since we don't have that obstacle in front of us.
Right. Exactly. So the Rebbe, basically, that's the Rebbe saying that we didn't. It wasn't possible to fulfill this halacha, but now that we are obligated to do it. And obviously, this was something that was very very revolutionary, and for the Yiddish, I think for the Yiddish world in general, and including Chabad also. I think Rabbi Simon Jacobson has a vart that he says that if you look in Sefer Erechim on Erech Umas Ha'olam, if it would have been written a few years later, it probably would have looked very different. Vidal. the point is that basically, in other words, that the Rebbe, the way how this topic was viewed, even by by Chassidim and Chassidus and Yiddishkeit Bechlal, there was a certain way of viewing it. And then what the Rebbe at Ufketan, the Rebbe's Chiddush and the Rebbe's Torah and the Lamids in the 70s and especially the 80s and the Mems and the Nuns was a very radical, very different, a big revolution in this whole, in the way how we, in the outlook on this concept, on this topic. Actually, I heard of Fabringen from after, I think was now, Gem on Gem TV. There's big Giluim, there's big revelations on a lot of stuff that used to be not open to the public. So one of the things that came out lately was a Fabringen from Rabbi Yoel, Fabringen 770 after Chav B'Shvat, maybe at the end of the Sheva or the Shloshim, very geschmack Fabringen. I think it's from that time. Anyway, there is a conversation over there about Sheva Mitzvos, and you could see it seems like, to me at least, that Rabbi Yoel is trying to figure out what the Geder of Elam and Bnei Yisrael. And for those who are familiar a little bit about, Rabbi Yoel very often speaks, Chassidus, the Rebbe's Torah, was the world, the Eibishter, Yidden, and anyway, the place of Elam, you don't hear that much. At least I didn't hear that much from in Rabbi Yoel's articles or speeches. You go every Fabringen in the Mems, the Rebbe spoke on television. The Rebbe spoke to the world. And the Rebbe's vision, the Rebbe is very, very strong about his vision to the world, about the place of all the Umas Elam in this process. It's the night of Simchas Torah, Tavshem Mem Zayin, before Akafis. The Rebbe's a beautiful sikha. The Rebbe speaks over there about the chiddush of every Rebbe over the other Rebbe. In other words, how Hafatz Samayanis Chutza went to new extremes at every single Rebbe, from the Alter Rebbe to the Middle Rebbe, Tzemach Tzedek, Tzemach Tzedek, Rebbe Rash, and explains how each one, the Middle Rebbe is Rechevis Anoir, is Bina, Tzemach Tzedek is the Chibur of Nigel and Chassidus, the V'chulu. And then he says, the Frierdiker Rebbe, Nesidereinu, what's the chiddush of Nesidereinu? So the Rebbe many times would say that the Frierdiker Rebbe translated Chassidus into many languages. So B'chlal, you look at the Sikhs, the early years, what's the part of translating Chassidus into many languages? For Jews who don't read Hebrew, for the Freie Jews, or for Jews that don't know Chassidus, are not that educated, that they could also learn Chassidus. What does the Rebbe say in Tavshem Mem Zayin? It's for Umas Elam, for the nations of the world to be able to understand Achdas Havaya. Clear? The chiddush of Nesidereinu of translating Chassidus is that non-Jews can learn Chassidus. And the Rebbe said in the Chavs already, that one of the reasons why the Tanya was translated into English is that Umas Elam learn Shayichud Ve'emunah, because even though there's a machlekes, if Umas Elam are obligated to believe, if shituf, the idea of how do you explain shituf, if association, in other words, in addition to the Eibishter, if there's also a shutuf, if that is isser on non-Jews or not. For Yidden, it's obviously Avodah Zarah. But for non-Jews, the question is it Avodah Zarah or not? And the Rebbe said, even though it's a machlekes, if it's considered a Avodah Zarah for a non-Jew or not, it definitely is better if they don't. L'chol hadayis, if they don't believe in Shittul, for sure it's better. And Shayichud Emunah is the ultimate belief in Achdas Hashem. So for a non-Jew to learn Shayichud Emunah, one of the reasons why the Tanya was translated into English is for a non-Jew to learn Shayichud Emunah. And I think for many people, this was something they didn't know exactly how to handle it, how to stomach it, how is this meant to be understood, and what's the shluchim's place in this whole thing. The Rebbe said in Tafshin Nun by the Kinus HaShluchim, there's a video of it. It's also Muggah. The Rebbe says that it's Kinus HaShluchim. The name is called Kinus HaShluchim Ha'ilami. What's the word Ha'ilami?
Worldwide.
The Rebbe's,
International.
The whole world. And one of the things the Rebbe says is that for every human being, Ad Kikach, the Rebbe says there are lashon that the majority of people in every Makom HaShlichus are non-Jews, which means is that a lot of the time of the Shliach, I think even the Rebbe use lashon, the majority of the time of the Shliach, Bekamus, not necessarily Be'echus, is designated to the non-Jews, because the job of a Shliach is to influence all the Yidden with Yiddishkeit and all the nations of the world with Sheva Mitzvah Noach. So the Rebbe makes it very clear that the Shluchim and Bachlal, Hafatzas Hamayanis Chutz, Hafatzas Yadis, Hafatzas Sheva Mitzvah Noach. The Rebbe said in Tavshem Mem Zayin, for instance, that by the public menorah lightings, the Rebbe said there's probably going to be non-Jewish people there as well. So therefore, at the menorah lightings, they should be speaking about Sheva Mitzvah Noach. So bottom line is the Rebbe's vision to reach every Jew on the same way, and maybe for the chiddush The bigger chiddush of the Rebbe is to reach the non-Jewish population as well, to inspire the non-Jewish population as well. And the fact that I say more than this, I say that in other words, the fact I don't know if I saw this from the Rebbe, but I think it's my heritage that the fact that today there's no persecution and therefore we could do Sheva mitzvahs. It's not pshat. Oh, there's no persecution, so therefore now we have to do it. But it's because that's the Rebbe's generation. It's the last generation before Geula. It's the last generation of Galus and the first generation of Geula. That is why the Eibishter made that this generation has no persecution, and therefore we could influence. It's the first time in Jewish history that Jewish people are able to influence the non-Jewish world, and it's accepted in a B'darchei Neyam, B'darchei Shalom. It's because this is Dor Hashvii. In other words, the fact that this is why wasn't it? Why Take 100 years ago it was mufrich for a Jew to influence a non-Jew? Why was it like that? Because the time wasn't ready. It wasn't the time of Mashiach yet. Dafke in Dor Hashvii, Dafke in this time, you didn't experience such rachvus, such breitkeit, and such shalom. Jews are in such a good position in the last 70, 80 years. It's because this is Dor Hashvii, because it's the generation of Mashiach, because it's the Rebbe's generation. That is why this is such an amazing time in the world, and that is why it's the first time in history that the Jewish people are able to influence in a positive way the non-Jews. And it's not, as the Rebbe said many times, that when a Yid, the Rebbe said it tons of times, that when Yidden are going to influence the Umas Ha'olam B'Sheva Mitzvos, it will add honor and respect to the Jewish people. The Rebbe said also, if a Yid is involved in business with a non-Jew, and the non-Jew sees that the Yid is not only there for business, but he cares about his own. The Yid cares about this non-Jew's ruchnis. He cares that how he behaves, how he that he davens to the Eibusher, that he believes in God, that he keeps Sheva mitzvah and Noach. This will bring respect by the non-Jews to the Jewish people, and they'll respect them, they'll honor them, they'll protect them, they'll help them financially. The Rebbe said all these things. The Rebbe said we're going to gain. The Yidden will gain by caring about the spiritual needs of the non-Jews.
So, my question is, this is many people's question, that I want to continue talking about like the philosophy behind it, but before that, there's a shaila that ultimately, if you look at the sichos, so that's it. The Chabad houses should become global, godly centers, wisdom centers, whatever, and we should open up all the doors to the whole world, and that's it. Call it a day. Yet, I do know that there when the Rebbe was speaking the sichos, there were some shluchim that started making devoted activities for Sheva mitzvahs, and there were some answers from the Rebbe that that's not necessarily the kavana. So what in your understanding, what is the fine line and the balance that needs to be done for people b'chlal, but particularly for shluchim?
So that's a good question, and everything I'm saying is based on my understanding. I'm sure there are different people that feel differently or hold differently, but I'll just say what I think, and I'm in no way am I saying that whatever I'm saying is whatever. I'm just saying what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. So first of all, a few things. First of all, I think that there could be a misconception and a mistake by some that think that Sheva mitzvah Noach or our influence in the world means the chas v'shalom that blurs the havdalah ben Yisrael Amim, or that blurs the havdalah of Shulchan Aruch and diuk and Shulchan Aruch and hidur became a mitzvahs, and it all of a sudden makes everyone one big lovey-dovey. What's it called? Chas v'shalom, and there's actually a sicha from a Yechidus Klalis in Tafshin Nun. I forgot the date. There's a video of it. The Rebbe says clearly. The Rebbe says obviously that that a Yid, that when they go out and deal with Sheva mitzvah Bnei Noach, it's after that they are careful betachlis in keeping their taryag mitzvahs, and therefore because they're so careful in taryag mitzvahs, there's no chashash that being involved with the Umas Ha'olam will have a bad hashpah on them. Often a verter. So, in other words, dealing with Umas Ha'olam doesn't mean that all of a sudden that there's any fakert. The fact that we're going and having an influence on Umas Ha'olam means that we recognize who we are, that we recognize we're Am HaNivchar. The Eibishter chose us and gave us Torah mitzvahs and gave us Taryag mitzvahs, and the Sheva mitzvahs of the Rabbanon, and Hiddur and Minhagi Yisrael, and Hiddur became a mitzvah. So in other words, it's not in any way, shape, or form, in any way a Schwachkeit in being proud and strong about the Havdalah of a Yid and
in other words, what you're saying is that perhaps one of the reasons why the Rebbe gave guidelines like how this should happen is for this reason, so that to be clear that wait 1 second. First of all, you're a Yid and you call yourself Revim Zebazeh and Taryag Mitzvahs, and we're here to help every single Jew, and that's that's who we are. And with that, there's also the obligation that we have for the world at large, but it's not on the it shouldn't be on the expense or blur these two things together.
I don't know if it's one is like the ikar and one's like the addition. I don't know if that's from the Rebbe. It doesn't seem like that. I'm just saying is that it's that.
But there were shluchim that wanted to open up
so that's
centers. Okay, yeah.
The next thing is, I think that I just want to say that I think that's a very important thing for us, for those who think about getting involved in these things, to understand that this is extremely important. That it means being a frum yid b'tachlis and a chassidish yid b'tachlis, and a mahadir and kiyum mitzvahs, and no playing around with one inyan halacha. I mean, I know when you deal with Umas Olam, you could come to questions about speaking about other religions, this, that.
I just want to say that I want to say that you deal with this in your locale. You actually do this. Like this is
and I tell
not a theory.
And and it's something. I'm just saying that it's the moment that you're neta from one prat and halacha to davar pashut that you're going against the whole kavan aliyena, the whole Sheva mitzvahs and the whole Mashiach and everything. If it means compromising on halacha and ki huzeh, then it's heipech hakavan. It's not even a shayla b'chal. So I mean, you speak to non-Jews very often. They start bringing up their faiths, their religions. And I tell them openly, a Jew is not allowed to engage in other faiths and other religions. So therefore, I don't know about anything you're talking about, and I'm not going to talk about it. And the Rebbe, I just saw a few sichos from Tashlam. Hey, the Rebbe is a very strong believer that when you tell a non-Jew that you have guidelines of Yalacha, and this is how it is. You say the truth without that non-Jews will respect you more.
Among Chassidim is brought to you by Chassidische Der Herr. We live in a chaotic world, a world where for us Chassidim is a seinu, lei ra'inu, we do not have the ability to hear and see the Rebbe on a daily basis. Yet we know that the Rebbe is very much with us, and the Chassidus Chabad is alive and thriving more than ever before. One needs to only tap into it. Chassidische Der Herr provides you and your family with the tools necessary to tap into all of this. Whether it's the monthly magazine, the way it all began, whether it's Der Herr books, Der Herr online content, and so much more. Men, women, and children throughout the world benefit and use these tools on a daily basis. Whether it's children enjoying the children's magazine that comes along with the regular Der Herr, or enjoying the children's podcast, whether it's Bachrim in yeshivas receiving the Der Herr, whether it's girls in high schools enjoying Der Herr Club in their local high school. People all over the world and from all walks of life enjoy and utilize these tools and take advantage of it. If you're not already subscribed to Der Herr monthly magazine, do so today at derher.org. That's derher.org. Der Herr is a dynamic organization which is committed to continue providing these tools, grow on a constant basis, and do all that we can to help this effort. Baruch Hashem, it takes a lot of resources and finances to make this all happen, You can be part of the Her through your financial support as well, through visiting our website, theher.org, or through contacting us to setting up a meeting. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the podcast.
The Rebbe said, Miguel, the Tanya, when the Tanya was printed in English, the Rebbe said that those who are afraid that Sa'ilam are going to see what it says there, and they'll be turned off. Pashtas, the Rebbe was talking about yeah. So, the end of Paragalov.
Yeah, Valve. Yeah.
And there's famous back and forth with Zalman Jaffe, but the Rebbe says in a Sikha, the Rebbe says that the Sa'ilam are going to see that this is the emes, and that they're going to respect it more for it. So when a Yid is strong and sure and confident in who they are and what they represent, there's pashut no one to be afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. In fact, the more honest we are, the more truthful we are, the more chassidish you are, the more frum you are, the more the Welt will respect you and appreciate you. That's just a very important, I think, yesod. Regarding the Indian of I think there's also that's what you're talking about, the answers that Rebbe gave to Shluchim. So I think in our Mitzvayim mindset, in the typical Chabad mindset, so what do you very often like? Which, by the way, I think the problem could also be with Yidden also. Like if a shliach has a meeting with a Jew, and he asked them during the meeting to put on tefillin with the Yid, and the Yid said he doesn't want to put on tefillin. If a shliach walks away from that meeting, and they feel like it was a waste of time or was not success, it's pasha shtus. You're not just you. The Rebbe didn't send you to this place to get more men to put on tefillin, and your success is valued based on how many Yidden put on tefillin. Of course, you should try to get people to put on tefillin, but it's not just about tefillin. There's more to the connection. The fact that you connected with the Yid, the fact that you sat down with the Yid, and even seemingly had a casual conversation. If you mentioned Inin Chassidus, Inin Nigla, Inin Yiddishkeit, this itself is an unbelievable accomplishment. It's not. We're not measured. So yeah, the Rebbe wants mitzvahim also. The Rebbe made mitzvahim v'chulu v'chulu. And there's Inin mitzvah tefillin. You should try to get Yidden to put on tefillin. But if the guy doesn't want to put on tefillin, there's other things. In other words, there's a deeper purpose.
Mitzvah Avos Yisrael also.
Yisrael, exactly.
Mitzvah tzedakah.
And even if you can't get a mitzvah, in other words, not everything is in the box of mitzvahim. The very fact that you live in a location and your house is called a Chabad house, Beis Chabad, you're the Lubavitch Rebbe's ambassador in this location, and that itself is the ultimate goal and ultimate purpose. Every person, man, woman, child, Jew, or from the Elam, you're that is already an accomplishment. So based on that, within the mindset of Mitzvahim, so we think Shav Mitzvos. What does Shav Mitzvos mean? So you have to go to an non-Jew. So you need something instead of tefillin. So you shove down his throat and you say the Shav Mitzvos. You rattle off the seven.
You give them a card. You give them a card, a Shav Mitzvos card.
So I mean, I'm not saying that's so. So what were some shluchim doing? Okay, so we have to teach Shav Mitzvah Noach. They started giving shiurim for Shav Mitzvah Noach. Now any shliach, I mean, I know for sure, if I would make an announcement, I'm giving classes in the Bible or giving classes about God, I would have hundreds of people coming to my Chabad house, non-Jews, to study. And one of the shluchim wrote to the Rebbe, I have a group that comes to me every single week or whatever, comes to them every so often, and they're leaving their churches, they're leaving this, and they're having questions about what type of Yom Tovim they could do, what type of tefillas they could do, what's the halachas. They're starting getting very close, and he's asking the Rebbe, should they come into Chabad house? Could they be part of this? Could they be part of that? So the Rebbe sent him to Rabbanim, and the Rebbe said the Rabbanim should give Mar Mekamis, and the Rebbe made it very, very clear. It has to be very serious psak, and the shliach said that Rabbanim basically couldn't come to a consensus of what should be done and what shouldn't be done, and therefore the whole thing fell flat. And the shliach felt from this that basically that the fact that the Rebbe sent in the Rabbanim didn't know what to do, is a raya that basically that the Rebbe was obviously in some way basically telling him no, and he stopped all his classes. He stopped.
And there were other shluchim that actually the Rebbe did tell them not to do these type of things. No.
I mean, there's different things that each thing has to be dealt with. I'm not sure which. I actually punktlich over the last half a year. I spoke to a shliach who since the Rebbe started.
We're not supposed to mention names here, but didn't Rabbi Weg have an answer from the Rebbe?
That's what I'm talking about. So the answer was to go to Rabbanim.
That's what the
answer was to go to Rabbanim, and maybe even clear the Rebbe said Vad Rabbanim Lubavitch, I think, He went to Vada ben Lubavitch, did his letter to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's answer to him is public. You can read it. So, the Rebbe sent him to Rabbanim, and the Rebbe said that Rabbanim should give him a psak b'ksav, I think, with Mar Mekamis, basically not stamped to give a psak. There should be a really,
that's that. Okay, that's
a really, a real source-based psak. And I think maybe the Rebbe even said something like should be serious. From the Rebbe,
the way he understood it was there was a little bit of a rejection about his formalizing. This.
And then I think he also spoke to Rabbi Avraham Shem Tov, and Avraham Shem Tov also said that at different times that he tried doing something, the Rebbe basically paused it. So Rabbi Weg has an understanding that even though the Rebbe spoke in Sichos very strongly about Sheva Mitzvah and Noach, yet when it came to Payil Mamish, the Rebbe put brakes on a lot he feels on everything. The Rebbe basically, when it came to practical, the Rebbe stopped things. I mean, we know that the Rebbe wanted a book to be printed, Shulchan Aruch for Goyim, that Nissim Mendel was meant to do, and that also never came out. I think the Rebbe didn't let it come out at the end. So there's this.
So what does this mean? What does this mean?
But the fact that first of all,
a lot of people struggle with it because you read the Sichos and the Rebbe is very clear about it, and then all of a sudden you hear these stories. So what does this all mean?
The fact of the matter is there are people that did get permission. So for instance, David Nachshon and Avi Taub, they printed brochures to give out in the Diamond District or something like that. What is it called? And whatever, Avi Taub used to do business in the Diamond District, maybe Manhattan or whatever.
Yeah, Diamond District. Yeah.
They made brochures and they got answers from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe actually was mizarez them, and the Rebbe they said niskabel v'tach or whatever. There's a whole back and forth about it. They wrote about it. One time they didn't write about the Rebbe. Next time they wrote about the Rebbe gave them more compliments. Anyway, they got clear. There was back and forth about making and there's other examples of things that the Rebbe gave permission to do for Sheva Mitzvahs, practical stuff, real things. So I don't. And then another thing, the whole Education Day is Sheva Mitzvah. All the proclamations at Education Day. Rabbi Avraham Shem Tov himself went from country to country trying to get leaders of every country to sign the International Scroll of Honor, which was signed first by President Reagan, in honor of the Rebbe, declaring about Sheva Mitzvahs. The Rebbe spoke about this. There's letters about this. So, of course, Rabbi Avraham Shem Tov doesn't think that the whole Sheva Mitzvahs are shut down. But I think what I understand, and I think that this is why I understand it, that the Rebbe, in other words, like this. Okay, this is how I coin it. Maybe I'm wrong. That the inyan of the atom to look to echad is special for Jews. The inyan of reaching out to every individual,
seeking out like Rabbi Sachs says, the same way Hitler seeked out every Jew with hate. The Rebbe has his people seeking out every Jew with love. He's saying that inyan of seeking every person out. Our job is to seek out every yid. Every
one Jewish child that learns Torah, one yid that puts on tefillin, one woman that likes Shabbos.
Is calling shluchim and saying, how many Jewish kids are there in your city? Do they all have a Jewish education? Hanging up the phone. These type of things.
Exactly. That's special for Yidden.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the job. In other words, a shliach. If you think about it, even practically, there's not enough shluchim. For sure now, but even in 100 years, there's not enough shluchim to deal with every single one of the billions of people on the planet on a one-on-one basis.
Okay, but that's not an answer because the Rebbe was saying to reach out to every yid when there was 10 shluchim in the world.
No, because that's a chesaron in us. The fact that we can't reach out to the fact that there wasn't 5,000 shluchim 70 years ago is a chesaron in the gavra, not in the heft. In other words, practically it was shaykh. It's we didn't work fast enough for the Rebbe, but in Indian, what we have now.
But you're saying there's not enough. If every yid would be a shliach, there's still not enough yidden to influence every single non-Jew. Okay, that's what you're saying.
Okay. And Bachlal, the Rebbe always spoke about the echos. By yidden, there's the Indian from echos. By the belt,
there's the shama, there's chelik hamimal,
and you see practically, right? Anyway, fine. The point is that echos is the Rebbe always spoke about that in Yiddishkeit. Always the echos was always gave her the kamos. I mean, even in the menachim of the world, right? What do people always say? I mean, this is not our talking points. We always say, how many of the Nobel Prize winners are Jewish? Why is that? Because by in Bnei Yisrael, there's the inyan of echos. We never were successful. Our kamos is not our thing. We're in inyan of echos. Okay. When it comes to umas ha'olam, you need kamos. You need to reach the masses. You need to get to everybody. So to sit and make if a shliach, if you have a vision of Sheva Mitzvahs as how many Yechidim are going to come into your Chabadas and come to Sheva Mitzvah Noach Shir, you lost the plot. That's not the point. The point is how you have to bring the Rebbe's message, the message of Yiddishkeit, to every person possible. And that's not by the typical Chabad house format. It's not by getting people into your Chabad house. So first of all, you have to be careful about the Havdil bin Yisrael Amim, that there shouldn't be, your Chabad house shouldn't be a mix of Yidden and non-Jews, the Chabad house in the typical Chabad house form is meant to be for Yidden. The connection, so you have to reach the world. How do you reach the world? By big things like the proclamation.
Using the governing body, or going to very influential people.
Exactly. So
the way you understand it is the Rebbe does want his chassidim and his shluchim to be involved in it, but not necessarily is it in the format of mitzvayim, like you're going to find every yid and just getting to do one more mitzvah and
or shir,
whatever one. It's more of how can we, by using our position in the world, also influence the whole world, like on a global scale or on a bigger scale. And that's why dafka for that you need government and you need influential people to be involved. So basically a little bit behind the scenes or causing things to happen.
Exactly. So in other words, when a shliach goes to the government and influences their government or influences whatever, that all the public schools have a moment of silence, right? I did it in my area. So 19,000 students begin their day every day with a moment of silence. I just reached all the kids in my area without anybody even knowing, right? So I'm not making a mitzvah of getting public school kids into my Chabadas and to talk to them about God. And maybe I'll get 15 kids, maybe I'll get 20 kids. I reached 19,000 kids in their public schools through the school board president, through whatever, through the whole. So first of all, it's not about my reach. It's about bringing obviously the message of goodness and kindness and humanity. But I'm saying that, in other words, the point is not to reach each individual. Yeah, exactly as you said. So through government or through influential people, through the newspapers, through the radios, through the radio, through television, through social media, not to sit there and just like you have a JLI shir, you have a Parsha class in your Chabadas and 7.5 people show up and you feel all good. You got 7 people to learn Chumash, so you can get 10 people that are not Jewish to learn the halachas of Sheva Mitzvos. That I don't think that's I don't think that was the kavanah.
So we need to get all the nation. But should there be organizations that are dedicated to this cause?
Which cause?
Sheva Mitzvos.
I'm not telling you what other things should be done. I'm saying what I put it this way. I think the Mashal Education Day could be have a much bigger impact if there would be a designated organization to work on it. I think so. I think Al-Derech said the Mitzvah Tzedakah has a massive potential to mamish take over the world. I think moment of silence. The Rebbe wants clearly moment of silence in all the public schools and shluchim in the last few years. Florida was thanks to shluchim. Arizona was thanks to shluchim. What's it called? Another state. I forgot what's the name. Is right now working on moment of silence there. There's shluchim in the last 7 years. Shluchim are working very, very hard on their local schools to get moment of silence done, and I think definitely much more work could be done to do that, and that is clearly one of the Sheva Mitzvos.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move back towards the philosophy behind all of this. So why is this? I guess it's connected to the Rebbe's vision of the world bichlal, which is to actually bring Mashiach and actually change the world this time for good, and actually finally make it dira b'tachtenim. See Basi Lagani for more details. And this is the way the Rebbe laid it out in the beginning. So how are we going to make it dira b'tachtenim? Through Yidden doing Torah mitzvahs, and through what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, that the whole world will kamayim hayom gemal aris days havai kamayim yom lachasim. The whole world will be filled with the knowledge of the Eibishter. So in order to hasten, it's also connected, I think, to what the Rebbe speaks about Mashiach, that we're not. Yes, Mashiach is miraculous, but we're not only waiting for Mashiach to come down from the sky out of the blue, but that there's a natural progression that the world has to go through in order for Mashiach to come, and we could be part of it, right? Like there's a chiddush that the Rebbe told students that while Mashiach is miraculous, I don't always like to view it only like that. I'm not saying exact quote, but I'm paraphrasing. And the Rebbe says that, for example, maybe Mashiach will be a master in technology and he'll influence the world that way. So basically, what we're doing here with influencing the world is, first of all, what we're doing here with getting other Yidden to do Torah Mitzvos is to help bring Mashiach and make a Dor Hashvii. And we're doing here with influencing the world is finally getting people to have Hashem and have God being part of their life, and ultimately, the fulfillment of that will be becoming a Mashiach. But this is part of the process, right? Is that?
So, but yeah. By the way, if you mentioned the Yechidus, it's a Merdik Yechidus. I think that they have printed it lately, maybe.
We printed it a long time ago. Maybe we printed it again recently. We did print it. Yes.
It's a Merdik Yechidus, and if I could masakin a little bit, what you said. That they asked.
I'm glad that I gave a disclaimer that I'm paraphrasing, because I didn't read it recently.
Yeah, the Rebbe said that they asked the Rebbe questions about Mashiach, and the Rebbe basically said, the Rebbe gave an example. The Rebbe said basically Mashiach is a reality. Again, maybe I'm making a mistake, but the Rebbe was basically trying to say that Mashiach could be a relatable reality. And the Rebbe said, the Rebbe gave an example. He said, imagine if somebody would come up with a weapon that would be the most powerful weapon in the world, and all nations would need that weapon. So the Rebbe said, obviously, all nations of the world would have to be now bottled to this person. Right? Look what now what's going on with the nuclear weapon in Iran. Look how the entire world is all of a sudden siding with Israel to destroy Iran's nuclear weapon. In other words, this little weapon is all of a sudden has an influence on the entire world. So imagine somebody, and that's something everyone can understand. Someone could create today in modern technology. Someone all of a sudden creates something, and to me, after I read in Mistama during COVID. They think about COVID, right? If you told somebody before COVID that there'll be 5 months that the entire world will shut down, there'll be no flights, there'll be no this, no that, shuls will be shut down, everyone would laugh at you and make you sugar. But all of a sudden, one little stupid virus has such an influence. If a little virus can have an influence on the entire world, someone can make with AI, or someone could come up with a concept. And the Rebbe says, imagine somebody came up with a technology that the entire world needs. Boom, the whole world is bottled to that one person. The Rebbe is giving an example of one man, one person, one individual who will have it, and the Rebbe says that's what Mashiach is. Mashiach will be able to get the entire world in a physical way, not just and
in a positive way.
Yeah, but the
things we're talking about were negative,
right? But the point is that in a rational tevadika way, Mashiach will have a way to get all nations of the world to come to him. So that they tell the Rebbe at the end, they say to the Rebbe, "Wow, usually we view Mashiach as supernatural miracles." And here you're giving such a rational like tevadika staklos on Mashiach. So the Rebbe said, I also think Mashiach is supernatural, is going to come with miracles and supernatural v'chulu. The Rebbe says sometimes they feel that it's harder for people to stomach if everything is meifsim. So I like to give also a understanding in a physical way, and I think that's the Tanaim of the Rambam is also without all the meifsim. When the Rebbe spoke in Sechus about Mashiach,
the Rambam says that the Shibud Malchus Bilvad, that he negates the whole miracles of Mashiach coming.
Right. So, and I think the Rebbe's explanation is because the Rambam says that's what's muchach al pi halacha, but it doesn't say it's not shayla that can't be meifsim also. I mean, the Rebbe speaks about Mashiach. He always talks about Meifsim.
The Rebbe speaks about the Arum and Anishmaya, and the Beis Hamikdash is born in Meshulchel Mamayla. It's coming down from the sky. Yeah, the Rebbe always speaks like those words.
He doesn't say, yeah. So it's not a stira. Anyway, so how do we get here about Oh, I was thinking. I'll tell you like this. What's it called? Like lately, this year I'm trying to learn the Chassidish Parsha every week. So.
What learn the whole thing?
Yeah, the whole parsha. So
how do you make that achlata?
I want to talk about that. Okay, so basically that.
As long as you remember what we're going back to.
Okay, we're going back to Sheva Mitzvos. Let's connect. Okay, Al Kopanim. So the vart is why the Rebbe said in the Farbringen of Bechlal, the Rebbe kocht in Chassidish Parsha. The Rebbe kocht and to learn the entire Chassidish Parsha. When the Rebbe printed Likutei again in Tafshin Chafei, the Rebbe made a whole mitzvah to learn the entire parsha every week, and the Rebbe told whoever learned it, said l'chaim by Fabringen, was the whole thing about that. And then throughout the years, the Rebbe always spoke about it. I remember the Rebbe learning Fabringen once in the Mems, that the Rebbe said that just like the Parsha Shavua has 7 halakim, one that's neged to each part of the week, so to the Chassidish Parsha also has a chelik that's neged to each day of the week. Just we don't know which one belongs to what. So anyway,
there's a sikha. So it's a weekday sikha. It's a video.
Yeah.
And I actually remember watching it, and I think you were there.
Okay.
The Rebbe says that it's just, the Chassidish Parsha is just like the regular Parsha. Just like the regular Parsha, each Aliyah is connected to the day of the week, right? Rishon is Sunday, Sheni is Monday. So the same thing with the Chassidish Parsha.
Yeah.
But we don't know which one is which part of the
Right.
Chassidish Parsha is connected to which day. However, we do know that the beginning, right in the beginning, must be connected to the first day, right? Because it's the beginning.
Right.
So since today's Sunday, I'm going to explain now something from the beginning of this week's Chassidish Parsha.
It was a week to Fabringen, you're sure?
A weekday sikha was a sikha in the front.
For some reason, I remember learning it inside.
If anyone remembers, please post the date of this sikha. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but I remember that. I remember that thing. I thought that the Rebbe was saying the end is Shaykh to Shabbos. I thought it was a Shabbos Fabringen. The Rebbe said the end of the Parsha.
You
Whatever.
never know. I might be making something up, but
I might be.
I'm pretty sure I saw that the Rebbe says that. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Another thing, the Rebbe's Mashal Chanukah Tavshim Mem Ches, I think the Rebbe said a sikha. The Rebbe said about learning the Chassidish Parsha. The Rebbe said learning the Torah from Nesidereinu is. What was the lashon? Learning the Torah from Nesidereinu. Oh, what was the lashon? It's like a davar pasha, but not the davar pasha. They said, what was the lashon? Anyway, to learn the Torah from the Nesidereinu is obvious, basically. But in addition, after learning the Torah from Nesidereinu, the Chassidish Parsha, something like that. In other words, you have to learn the Nesidereinu. What was the lashon? Whatever.
You're saying that obviously a chassid learns the Rebbe's Torah.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
But Chassidish Parsha is a fundamental thing that's very important.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole Chassidus is taken from Likutei and Torah. So
yeah, the Rebbe once said about how Amol Ketzaiten Flag Zayin that a tata would learn with his little children the Chassidish Parsha of the week. Some people say that means the Rebbe's father. I don't know if there's
a story because there's a story.
The Rebbe
said what you just said by Fabring, that there was a thing that people that learned it with their kids, and I think the Rebbe says I don't know why people don't do it.
Okay,
right? The Rebbe says that.
I don't remember.
And there's a whole story. I think it's Itcha Dubov. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it was Itcha Dubov. I think it was him. He saw the Rebbe. He saw the Rebbe's father reading Likutei Torah, and the Rebbe was a little kid next to the Rebbe, basically reading it to the Rebbe. And he asked the Verstatement, he doesn't understand. And basically, I think the Rebbe's father said to ask him. And the Rebbe knew the content of Likutei Torah. So this story came out, I don't know, more recently, whatever, it became famous recently. But then there's a sikha that the Rebbe says there was a minhag that parents used to learn with their children. So the Rebbe was talking to himself. Yeah.
Okay. So, so then, but Veidvu Iker, the Rebbe spoke by the Kinnas HaShluchim, the famous Kinnas HaShluchim Fabringen of Tavshinam Beis, the last Kinnas HaShluchim that we were zeichet here.
The Rebbe said that the only Avedas HaShlichus left is to be Mekabel Pnei Mashiach Tzidkenu. That's sikha, yeah.
Yeah, very, very strong sikha that is also, is also used a lot, to quote a lot, v'chulu. And so even in the Mugdige sikha, but especially when you look at the Bilti Mugdige sikha, the Rebbe is koching in that Fabringen majorly in the Chassidish Parsha. The Rebbe, to the point that in the Bilti Mugge, in the Mugge, it's not written that way. In the Bilti Mugge, the Rebbe said that the Likutei and Torah is the Torah Shebechsav of Torah Chassidus.
Usually it says that about Tanya.
Usually it says about Tanya. Here the Rebbe said, and the Rebbe said a fascinating line that the Rebbe said over there was that just like there is a minig to finish the entire Rambam, to complete learning Rambam in a year, so too you should also finish the entire Torah and Likutei Torah with Shir Hashirim in a year. And to me that was like Pashat. It's like Rambam is the Rebbe's Chiddush. It's like the Rebbe's takana, personal takana is Rambam. Torah and Likutei Torah, Jews have been learning for 250 years. Like the basic Chiddush thing, learning Torah, learning Likutei Torah.
Yeah, back in the day when there was barely any Sfarim, what were people learning?
That was the book. And here the Rebbe says, just like we learned Rambam. I mean, Rambam is Sachakol Tafshin on base. How many years was there already after Takana Rambam? 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, whatever. And yeah, how many? Yeah, about 5 years, whatever, 6 years.
Dalit.
From Dalton and base. And here the Rebbe says, just like you learn the entire Rambam every year, so too you should also finish the Chassidus Parsha with Shir Hashem every year. Anyway, and come upon throughout the Fabring, the Rebbe brings it up again because the Rebbe was kept on quoting the end of Shir Hashirim about Ma'uban, Yitzchak and Rivka. The whole thing is from Shir Hashirim. It's a very, very central theme. In the Mugge also it brings out, but it's in the built-in Mugge, it's much more, you see that there was something that was very much part of the Fabring. And I remember when the first time I learned the built-in Mugge to get Fabring, when I was a Bacher still, it really shocked me, because, in a very immature, in my immature head, or when you don't really, I think when, I don't know what the right words to say is, I think there's a very childish way of seeing, thinking about Moshiach, thinking about is like, in other words, how many times has Chayei Sarah been Tafshin Beis been quoted, and that's not. But I guess what I'm trying to say is like this: that what's Mashiach basically? What is Mashiach? The Rebbe is screaming that Mashiach is here, and it's our job to tell the entire world Mashiach is Dov. What does that mean? What it means is what's Mashiach? I just heard people keep on.
Are you tying this back to the Sheva Mitzvos thing, or this is
not yet?
Different track. Okay, yeah.
A little bit of a different track, but maybe it's connected.
Yeah.
But actually, I see people on the podcast keep on mentioning Shalom Berlivsker. I just heard a speech of Shalom Berlivsker, I think from an Aleph in 770. So he says, what's Mashiach? Mashiach means people are, instead of doing what they want, they're going to be learning Chassidus. In other words, Mashiach, what's Mashiach? Mashiach means you're going to be busy a whole day learning Chassidus or experiencing Chassidus.
I think what I listened to those. I think what he says is it's not that you're going to have better herring at the at the ring.
Exactly. If you think Mashiach is going to be a picnic, it's not. So it's where we tell to the kids that the chocolates will grow on the trees. Mashiach means Achtas Havaya, means Shayach V'Emunah, means
I just told my 4-year-old that, and he was very excited.
The candies.
He's always looking for candies. I told him, by the way, soon you're gonna have a lot of them.
And what did Rebbe say? Kol Madanim Tzoyin Ka'afar means that the Madanim, all the delicacies of the Gashmis of the world, will be to us like dust, will mean nothing to us. Which, by the way, a shliach called me the other day, and was telling me that the whole pachad of the world of AI, that AI will take over people's jobs and take over people's work. The whole part of AI is that the dream of AI, that they're pushing in 25 years, everyone will have everything. There'll be plenty. And what's the fear? That people will be bored. When people will be bored, the Elam will go wild. But Lapayel, what does the Rambam say about Mashiach? That everything will be in abundance. Huh?
We'll be pnuyim. We'll have time on our hands.
Yeah, we'll have no needs. All our needs will be taken care of. And by the way, the Rebbe said in the Yechidus how he likes giving a gashmistic to see it in a tavidik way. AI, based on this dream that AI is going to take over all jobs and whatever, it's partially a physical way we could see in our own eyes that how in a reality that the world won't need to work. Well, partially everything we'll have in abundance, and we'll have nothing else to do besides learning chassidus. Akopanim, the point is, what am I saying? So I feel that what the Rebbe said in Shabbos Kinnos Shluchim Tafshin Beis, the last Kinnos the Shluchim the Rebbe spoke Leisata, and all these ACs about Mashiach, and then the same Fabring, the Rebbe has such a meidik kach about learning the Chassidus Parsha, the whole thing. Someone could say, a shliach is so busy, this, that. If your whole job is to bring Mashiach and to say that the last shlichus is that l'kal pnei Mashiach tzkenu, what does it mean? What does it mean l'kal pnei Mashiach tzkenu? What does it mean celeb Mashiach? What does it mean? It means that you have nothing else in your life that bothers you besides verstehen the Eibishter, besides living achtas havaya. So if it means that a shliach spends 5 hours on Shabbos to learn the Likutei Parshas Bamidbar, or Parsha Shlach, which is this week, which is is insane, is a massive, very, very long, which could take hours and hours and hours and hours to learn. What's Mashiach? Mashiach means hours and hours, la'elam vad, having one ladas Hashem. So there could be no better way in tasting, and the only way you could give over Mashiach to Andra is if you have a shaykhs to Mashiach yourself. So when a shliach is busy, hours and hours a week, Pashat learning Torah and Likutei Torah, Pashat the kamos, forget about the eichos, just the kamos, the amount of time it takes to read those words, even if you don't understand. Which, by the way, there's minus to the Rebbe about the people that complain, they don't understand, do understand. It was very clear from the Rebbe that Darfus learning, even if have a hard time understanding, you have to finish the whole thing. The Rebbe said, I think one lashon, one maimer to learn well, the iyun, and the rest.
I think once the Rebbe said. I think once the Rebbe said the beginning.
The beginning of the first maimer. Al Kapanim. The point is that yes. So anyway, so that Sicha Kinas Shluchim always had a big impact on me. Obviously, I think on many people. I think there were many people who learned it because of that Fabringen. And I learned it a few times. I learned Torah a few times before, but whenever it came to Likutei Torah, it was always Pesach time. I always fell off when it came to Likutei Torah. This year, actually, Yossi Jacobson, Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, Hayadua, posted on a group. I say this in Parshas Noach to learn the Chiddush Parsha, and I decided to jump on. He was my me. I was thinking about it from Simchas Torah. Yeah, no, I wasn't sure. I shouldn't. Anyway, I got inspired and decided to do it. So yeah,
he gets the credit.
Okay. Gets the credit. Okay,
very good. Yeah. I also learned the Torah, but I don't know if I finished the whole thing. I definitely start.
Actually, I was mefarsim on my status about the Likutei Torah in the beginning of the year, and there were a few shluchim that started learning it. I know at the end of when I finished Torah, at least one shliach, maybe more, told me that b'schus ma'aseiros they learned the entire Torah for the first time in their life this year.
It's beautiful. Okay, so how did this? So let's tie it back. You mentioned the Torah because Sheva Mitzvos. Let's go back.
Oh, one of the things I was thinking when you learn the Torah, when I learned Torah and Likutei Torah, I can't talk for anybody else. When I learned Torah and Likutei Torah, doesn't feel like we said before about Nesiderenu, not Nesiderenu. It feels like to me, it feels like the Rebbe talking. So first of all, I mean, to Yadua that the Rebbe's first six of Fabringen are Meyusad and Torah and Likutei Torah, my monim. And you learn a mimer from the Rebbe and you learned that week's Torah, Likutei Torah. Chances are there's going to be something touched upon from Torah and Likutei Torah. You learn the first two six of Fabringen,
especially if you learn Likutei Sichos, especially the early halakim when the Rebbe's that the Rebbe's giving the foundations there. It's always look at the Torah. That all the famous thing. This week's parasha, the Meraglim at their whole things. They didn't want to be involved in Gashmias.
Right.
Where do you think it comes from? It comes from the Torah. The whole thing.
Yeah, and the same thing with Mashiach. The same thing with Nigla Kver Hashem Rakol. How many times does Alter Rebbe say in Likutei and Torah Nigla Kver Hashem Rakol so Yachtik be a Vaydiber? Loss of love. Milu b'shamayim chol chafatz libara. It's not Gan Eden, not Elam Haba, not the Seviv, not Mala, only the Eibishter Alein. It's all over Torah and Likutei Torah 1,000 times. So like, and you do that. Rabbi Yael used to tell everybody that chayzrim, that the hachana to prepare for Fabringen to learn the Chassidus Parsha and Eira Torah from Tzemach Tzedek of that week. The Rebbe's miyasid the first few sichos on what the Alter Rebbe and Tzemach Tzedek say on the parsha of that week. So that's probably one reason why I see the Rebbe there. But I think that in its etzem Chassidus is it's Kiyadua the pilpul. The Rebbe said once that maybe the name of the Friedrich Rebbe that the question was in the sharblat of the Rabbeim to write shalshelas hamoyer shalshelas ha'er. You know what I'm talking about? On the sharblat of the Rabbeim's Torah, it says shalshelas ha'er Chassidus, right? Shalshelas ha'er. Anyway. The chain of the Eir, or I should say the chain of the Moir, and the Rebbe said L'cheira should be a Moir because Moir, it's all one thing. So this is all one thing. The Rebbe said Afal Pikein, it was written Shalshelas Eir because there can't be any Shalshelas, there can't be any Dargas and Moir. In the source of the light, it's the source. There's no Shalshelas. Only in Eir there could be a chain. Whatever. The point is that basically in many ways, Chassidus, the Rabbeim, all the Rabbeim, in some ways, are all one Indian. It's all one mahus. It's all one concept. Elamai, the chiddush is that each Rebbe took this Indian and brought it to a whole new level in Hafatza. Brought it to a whole new level in Chutzah. So, in other words, the same Mashiach that L'chaira, in Etzem, the same Mashiach that Rebbe speaks about, the Chassidim Alter Rebbe already heard about. But then, what did Hafatza Mayanas mean? that a yid, that you're the seichel hagashmi of a person, of a Jew sitting in shul in a little winkel in Russia, that was chutzah. The seichel is chutzah. So the seichel understands chassidus in the
It's
seichel
chutzah
way.
from your nefesh elokis.
Yeah, for nefesh elokis. So when the seichel of the nefesh Bahamas understands and appreciates chassidus.
I heard that when the Rebbe started introducing the Mitzvos, there was a certain mashpia somewhere that was. They were saying we have to do Mitzvos, and the mashpia was like, "What do you mean? We're always doing this. We're spreading to nefesh Bahamas, to your seichel."
Yeah. Yeah, so Kimuvan there was a Fatzim Yanis also. I mean, there was Kimuvan, there was a Hedrais from the Rabbeim to Chazak Siddur and Shuls, and to influence other Jews
and,
to learn Siddur.
and printing Chassidus. I mean, this
Printing
is all.
Chassidus.
It came in stages.
Exactly. So it's not like it was always about just the Yid on themselves, but yet there were plenty of people that that's what Hafatzim Yanis was, that I should learn Chassidus and I should daven and I should be v'chulu v'chulu, and that. And the Alter Rebbe is saying the whole world, V'nikol Kved Hashem, how they understand Moshiach then. So for then, Mashiach and the world meant myself, my Nefesh Bahamas, my Yetzer Hara, whatever, the histaklos of the entire world, Kipshutei, even within the Jewish world, but for sure. And every generation, and by the Rebbe, these things should take on a real, when I say real, well, depends. There's two Das Elyon and Das Tachten, right? Das Elyon says that Lamayla Yesh, that the Eibishter is the true existence, and Lamata Ayin. Das Tachten says Lamata Yesh and Lamayla Ayin, that the here the world is the real existence, is the real reality, and the Eibishter is something we don't understand, to be up above our understanding. And the whole point is to make a chibur of both. But Kalpanim, the Rebbe's in the Kudah is to take the Gashmistika physical disconnected world and say that this physical Gashmistika world, in its lowest level, in its simplest, lowest, crass, grubbe level, has to be totally durchgenommen with the highest levels of Gattelkeit. And I think every generation meant what it meant for that generation, and the Rebbe basically takes it down and says it means kipshute, pashat umas ha'olam, pashat every Jew in the most lowest levels, and everywhere in the world, b'chol pina ba'olam, pina chini dachas, everything is in the most literal sense. These things already said, it's already stated in Likutei and Torah. But the Rebbe takes it and says this is for again, you have to be careful when you say for real. For real is elikos, but for real this means, like, in other words, if you told a chassid in time of the Rebbe that in a pina nedachas ba'olam, a non-Jew should have a moment of silence and think about God, right? Or give tzedakah because the Rebbe said, or have a shaykh. They'll laugh at you. Not only in that time of the Rebbe, I think even in the Dor Hashvii, and I think even big chassidim, like big mukasharim of the Rebbe, would think that it's that's not an Indian even. And by the Rebbe, it's no. This is that Moshiach is a practical, real world change. That the world will change, every detail of the world will change, and not just through nisim, not necessarily only through nisim u'meisim that Moshiach will come and make nisim u'meisim and change the world, but in a ki'ilu in a teva way, that the teva alein will be nizdachach, will be refined and elevated to be a kli to the alien, to be a kli to the elikos, and that in other words, I think our Aveda, the Aveda of bringing Mashiach and the shluchim of the Rebbe is, in other words, the miracles, the miraculous Mashiach, that's the job of Mashiach to do. Our job is to make in a natural way, to make the world ready naturally for Mashiach. The Rebbe said in Yechidus after the 6-Day War to Chaim Gutnick, to Rabbi Chaim Gutnick from Australia, which just mamash recently came out at recording of Rabbi Chaim Gutnick saying over this Yechidus mamash right after it happened in 770.
It's been printed for a long time. It was in Tzadik Lamelech. It was printed originally.
Yeah, it was printed for a long time. But here you hear him how he's talking to Yechon and Gordon. Rabbi Yechon and Gordon is sitting at that conversation. And he's talking to Rabbi Yechon and Gordon and the other Chassidim. It's like fresh, right after he heard it. One of the things that Rebbe said, the Rebbe was speaking to him, they were speaking very strongly about Mashiach. And one of the things that Rebbe spoke about was the union of Mashiach. So Chaim Gutnick asked, how is it possible that Mashiach will Yachav Kol Yisrael? How is that possible? That one man will like literally influence every single Jew to go into the Mitzvos? So the Rebbe said it doesn't have to be Mashiach himself. It could be through a shluchim.
Shluchim or shluchi, I think the Rebbe said.
Shluchim. Anyway, so in other words, every shliach every shliach in the world. I mean, the Rebbe said in Sichos many times that shliach is gematria Moshiach be'esafas eser kechs nefesh.
That's it. Yeah.
So our job is like we have to see ourselves, and we have to realize that.
And every yid is a Nitzos Mashiach, like the Rebbe was
every
quote
yid,
from
first,
the Meiraneim.
that's right, and the Rebbe said that the Rebbe said in Tafshim Mem Daled that every single yid b'direinu zeh is a shliach of Nesidereinu, is a avdei of Nesidereinu, a shliach of Nesidereinu. And the Rebbe said that that just like, and whether you like it or not, it's not up to you. The Rebbe said just like a Jew, once you're born a Jew, you're a Jew. You can't change it, right? That's Chabad. We're masters at telling people that you're Jewish no matter what. Whether you do behave that way. You don't behave that way. You're born Jewish. You're Jewish. Just like a Jew is born Jewish, every Jew in this generation, since the Rebbe became the Nasi Adair, is a shliach of Nesidereinu, whether he likes it or not. What's your bechira? Your bechira is how much I can live according to that reality. Just like a Jew, right? You're Jewish whether you like it or not. It's up to you to let that truth be lived and realized in your life in a day-to-day level or not. You could do one mitzvah, you could do taryag mitzvahs. The more you do it, the more you're living according to your true identity. Same thing. The only question is, how much are we going to embrace this reality that we are shluchim of the Nasi Adair? But every Jew is a shliach of Nasi Adair. So every single yid, and especially those who officially are associated with the Rebbe, officially associated with Chabad, we are all the Rebbe shluchim, and our job is to basically do Mashiach's job, is to influence every single Jew to go in the ways of Torah mitzvahs, to get the world ready. Love the kulam shechem echad. So back to the whole topic of mitzvahs, I think that that in other words that this, when you're talking about why is this a chiddush of the Rebbe, I think that the Rebbe basically took love the kulam shechem echad, which was a concept in Chassidus maybe or whatever in Torah, and made it push it and brought it down to reality. It literally means that every single non-Jew will be influenced by the Eibishter, will be influenced by Torah, will be inspired to follow the Manhig Yisrael of our generation, which that's, by the way, a very central point, as the Rebbe mentioned many times, that Siva Moshe, that the Rambam says that it's important that a non-Jew knows that Sheva Mitzvos was given through Moshe Rabbeinu.
The Rebbe a lot, so, like, very often the Rebbe mentions Sheva Mitzvahs, he mentions that line from the Rambam that what are we talking about? We're talking the Sheva Mitzvahs that came through Moshe Rabbeinu. Like I think the point is that it's given at Sinai, right? That's
Moshe Rabbeinu knows the name Moshe is part of it.
Saying
okay, it's through Tziva Moshe. The Rebbe, there's a whole sicha of Yudalef Nisan Tavshem Memhei, which then was the first Sima Rambam, and there was also 850 years of the Rambam or something like that. The Rebbe spoke a whole sicha about how it's important that the Umas Ha'olam should give kavod to the Rambam, and the Rebbe speaks about how it's important that the Umas Ha'olam should make stamps in honor of the Rambam, and they should make events and proclamations. And Mamash, the Rebbe was making a whole shturim that the different governments of the world should do things in honor of the 850 years of the Rambam. Then the Rebbe goes and says, what's the vart? What's the uftu? First of all, the Rebbe explains how you could go to a non-Jew and a non-Jewish government and explain them why they should care about the Rambam Machal. The Rebbe doesn't say, give honor to a Jewish rabbi. No. The Rebbe explains that the Rambam was dedicated for the well-being of non-Jews. The Rambam writes that he was a doctor, and a big part of his career, a big part of his work as a doctor was pasha to help. He didn't sleep, he didn't have koyach, just to help non-Jews. Pasha Begashmius, the Rambam was dedicated to that well-being of non-Jew of the nations of the world. Also in the Rambam's Torah, the Rambam is the only Yidden that wrote a whole halakim in his Rambam, in his Torah, for the non-Jews. He writes about the Sheva Mitzvah Noach, v'chulu v'chulu, and he says about Mashiach. What does the Rambam say when it comes to Mashiach? The yud, the purpose of the whole creation, that lo yeh kol eisa kol olam ela das Hashem bilvad. That's including Umas Ha'olam. So the Rambam writes the vision about the purpose of the world. The Goyim are part of that. The fact that the occupation of the entire world will only be to know God. That's part that the non-Jews are included. So sign his Torah and sign his actions. The Rambam was dedicated to non-Jews, and therefore it makes sense that non-Jews should do things to honor and recognize the Rambam. And then the Rebbe says, and those are saying, what's the big uftu the non-Jews will give cover to the Rambam. So the Rebbe says one of the greatest brachas that Jews are benched is Baruch Tia Mikol Am, that the nations of the world give a bracha to the Yidden. So the fact that nations of the world recognize the godless of the Rambam is one of the greatest blessings that Yidden have. And then the Rebbe goes and says how in the Megillah it speaks about Mordechai, these are the fact that the nations of the world recognize the godless of Yidden, and more specifically, obviously, the leaders of the Yidden, Mordechai, the Rambam. The Rebbe said in a Maimer, which actually someone pointed out to me that was just a few months after Education Day, in Yud Gimel Tishrei Tafshin Lamed Tes, weekday Fabrengus, you carry on tape, and it's also Muga. The Rebbe says the story about the Rebbe Marash. The Rebbe Marash was one time taking a walk or going with his wagon, and he took a different route than he usually took. And he was going through a bunch of non-Jews who were walking by. And the non-Jews that saw him bowed to the ground. And the Rebbe is crying when he says the story. So, the Rebbe starts crying. I mean, the Rebbe cried many times when he said stories about the Rebbe Marash. Maybe that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, the Rebbe starts crying when they said the story. So the person who was with the Rebbe Marash, I forgot who it was, the Chassid or whatever, he asked the Rebbe Marash, "Was heißt?" So the Rebbe Marash said,
what was the question?
I don't know. People are bowing to him. Something asked the question, what is this about? So the Rebbe Marash said, Petach or whatever, Avem steht, Baruch Tia Mikol Amen. Like, who do you think it's talking about when it says Baruch Tia Mikol Amen? The Rebbe Marash said. And the Rebbe is saying this, and then the Rebbe says the fact that this story came to us by Nisidireinu, by a Nasi Ader, and it was printed, means that the Nasi Ader gave a koyach that every Yid should be in this way. That Al-Khaira, this is an Indian that Shaykh the Rebbe Marash, that the Rebbe gave the koyach, the Frierdiker Rebbe, whatever, they gave the koyach that every Yid should have this concept as mebuksach to a Yid, because Baruch Tia Mikol Amen. The point is that that all these ideas always existed, but yet the Rebbe brought it down into this here and now in the real world. That it's our job to reach out to because Moshiach is this generation. It's not just in. You could do the Maisa that the Tzemach Tzedek. There was a ketz from the Alter Rebbe in what was it? Tafrei. Yeah, well, whatever. What year was it? Whatever. Whatever. Anyway, one of the years. And there's a ketz from the Alter Rebbe, and the Tzemach and the Rebbe Marash asked Tzemach Tzedek. The Rebbe repeated the story many times. The Rebbe Marash asked Tzemach Tzedek, "What happened to the ketz?" And Tzemach Tzedek said, "Likutei Torah was printed." So he said, "We need Mashiach Kipshute." So the Rebbe speaks about this whole topic. But anyway, the point is that in other words, there was times in history when the reality of Mashiach was Likutei Torah. That is Batzim. In Etzem, that is Mashiach. But the Rebbe was saying that the Rebbe Marash said that Mashiach is Kipshute, that it has to actually transform the physical Gashmistic world. And that's where we are. And so this is the generation of Mashiach. This is the last generation of Gauls, first generation of Gula. So that's why it's the Rebbe who introduced this whole concept of Sheva Mitzvah Noach, which is a radical change in Jewish history. Never happened before. It wasn't possible, and it wasn't possible because it wasn't the time for it. Now it's a time for it, and only the Rebbe could say that it's a time for it. Only a person that has the Breitkeit, the Breita places like the Rebbe, that knows the essence of reality, because he is the essence of reality. And in Kundus Yonash it says that Mashiach is the Yechida Kolos of the whole Bria, the whole creation. So only the Yechida of Seder Shtalshlos could say when this is a time, because it's an unbelievable Breitkeit to go and suggest that Yidden all of a sudden should go and start having influence on the nations of the world. And it's a Breitkeit in many, many ways. And literally, I don't think anybody in the world ever, till today, feels that they have that authority to make such a decision. It's a Rebbe's decision, and it's because it's a Rebbe's tafkid. This is a Rebbe's job. This is a Rebbe's tafkid. And as the Rebbe said about the Frierdiker Rebbe, that the Frierdiker Rebbe could have brought Moshiach himself and decided to have all the Yidden join him. So the same that they said about David HaMelech, that David HaMelech could have built the Beis HaMikdash himself, and he wanted to have all the Yidden join. And the Frierdiker Rebbe did this about the Sefer Torah Kabbalas Bnei Moshiach. He could have wrote it himself, and he had all the Yidden join in. The point is that the Rebbe wants every Yid, and that's Chav Ches Nissen. He gave over the job to every single Jew, that it's all of the Rebbe brought us all in, and not only are we part of it, but we have to take responsibility for the goal. In other words, still Chav Ches Nissen or Purim Mem Zayin, you could say that we have to do what the Rebbe tells us to do, and the Rebbe, takes it to the goal, makes Mashiach come. But now the bottom line, the goal is also part of it. We have to know that the job of bringing the entire world to Mashiach is in our hands, and we are given the keiches. The Rebbe gives us the keiches for it, and it's our job. We have to do it. Side with bringing the Jewish world, and side bringing the non-Jewish world, and yeah.
One of the integral components of being a chassid are the Chassidish Yomim Tovim and Yom Pagra. Whether it's Hey Tevis, Yud Shvat, Yud Aleph Nisan, or Gimel Tammuz. These days give us an opportunity to connect with our Rabbeim, to connect with each other, and be better Chassidim. What is the story behind each of these days? How did the Rebbe commemorate and celebrate these days? And most importantly, what are the lessons, the takeaways, and the action items Hamaisa Hua Ikr needed for each of these days? All of this and much, much more are answered in the new set recently published by Dor Hashvii. Our Days is a journey through the Chabad calendar in story, meaning, and practice. With over 700 beautiful, glossy pages with elevated content, beautiful, beautiful photographs, you, your family, and friends will enjoy and live with each Chassidish Yom Tov. This book is a must for every Lubavitcher home, for every shul, for every school. It is a perfect gift item. This will not collect dust. It will be used day after day, month after month, year after year. You can have this set. Go to dorher.org/Our Days. Order your set today and start living with the Chassidish Yom Tov.
So you said everything very factual, so I don't know if I should bring any shilas. Then I don't want to ruin it. No, maybe we should talk about it.
Okay.
What does it mean? What does it mean the Dor Achron of Galus and the edition of Gula?
What is it? What's the question?
No, the Rebbe said it. The Rebbe said this throughout the Nasias many times. Then there's a Gimel Tammuz, and there's 30 years. How does that fit in with the whole thing?
Well, what does it mean? A generation? What does a generation mean? And based on what? Based on who is a generation determined?
Okay. Good question.
So l'chaira, a generation. A generation. The generations are determined not by Kugel and Shalom. The generations are determined by the Nasi. Every generation has. Every generation. I mean, who even told us about generations? Where do we even know about generations from? Like, the world is existing 5,780, and who told us about generations?
This whole thing about the 7 days and the whole thing, and
this is all created. This is all was told to us by the Rebbe. I mean, even the previous Rebbeim. I mean, who did they speak in this lashon? Generations, datas.
I mean, it's based on the Medrash, right?
Yeah, fine. So there's a Medrash about Avram to Moshe Rabbeinu.
And the Rebbe is the one that said that there's 7 days, and
exactly. Who told us about datas? Who told us about this whole thing? The Rebbe told us. Said in Bas. The Rebbe found it important that in his very first mimer, which by the way, it's Pashut. I sometimes I know for myself that sometimes the things that are so that we know, sometimes the things that like. I was sitting with a teenage boy that thinks that because of October 7th got very inspired about Yiddishkeit. He learn with him every week. We did his bar mitzvah, but as the Rebbe said, in American culture, the bar mitzvah is a graduation from Judaism. So he walked Kiragil. He got disassociated, and on his own, he was inspired to get involved in Yiddishkeit. So over the last year, we became very close. He's going to college next year. Anyway, this Jewish boy tells me that one of his regret in life, like what bothers him, is he wished he would have been raised as a frum kid, as a kid that had Yiddishkeit in his life, the Eibishter in his life, and that's one of his regrets. His regrets, one of the things that hurts him. So I told him back. I said, that actually there's a big advantage to being in your place because now you appreciate it. You're a 16, 17-year-old kid. You appreciate what Yiddishkeit is all about. You appreciate the Eibishter, appreciate Torah Mitzvos. I said, unfortunately, sometimes when you're raised in it, that it's hard to appreciate what you have because it's natural. It comes obvious to you. So I'm saying is, Al derech zeh, I think that sometimes, the things that we are raised with and we have in our mother's milk, we lose sensitivity and appreciation for the godless of it. So one of those things, there's many things, but I think one of the things is, I think Bichlal, I think the Rebbe, Chassidus, I think sometimes I'll talk for myself, we forget and lose appreciation for what that means and how revolutionary and how amazing and how uplifting, how inspiring, all of these things, which is, by the way, why we're officially meant to daven every day and think about the godless of the Eibishter again and again and again, Psukkah de Zimra, and
to reappreciate it.
To again remember what's going on, to realize v'chulu. But anyway, one of the things is Basi Lagani Tafshin Yud Aleph. The fact that the Rebbe showed up, the fact that Rebbe comes the first day of his Nesius in a little room in 770 with a few hundred people and says the Maimer Basi Lagani Tafshin Yud Aleph, which is, till today, it could blow you off. It's unbelievable. It's Pasha unbelievable. The Frierdiker Rebbe do that, the Rebbe Rashab do that, the Alter Rebbe do that, the Baal Shem Tov do that. Like Pasha coming the first day. There's nothing like. I don't want to. I want to be careful with my words. How do you like? If you think a regular person, a regular leader, right? What do you have to show for it? Like what's like? That's it. This is Dor Hashvii. This is a generation. It's all here, all now. This is it. Like it's unbelievable. So anyway, so the Rebbe says and so how do we get to Basi Lagani? So yeah. Anyway, so how do we get here? How do we get to Basi Lagani?
We're talking about that the Rebbe is the one that introduced the concept
so
of
the
the
Rebbe
Deiris.
is So the Rebbe is the one that taught us from day one. Thought it was important to tell us about this whole idea. Like how many Chassidim of the Rebbe Rashab knew about this medrash? Officially the Rebbe Rashab. I think the Rebbe Rashab said once he's Dor Hashvii, the Baal Shem Tov.
Yeah.
Okay. But how many people? And did he go through the medrash? I don't remember. I don't know. Where does it say? Yerushalayim? Where does it say?
Did it b'tachtein? I'm saying it's in.
Dor b'tachtein, but I'm saying the medrash of the Avraham,
the Zayin Tzadikim. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the Frierdiker Rebbe, obviously even Basi Lagani brings it, but like that parallel in such a clear way that there's 7 generations, and that this is the Dor Hashvii, and this is the last generation, and even if the Rebbe didn't say, first of all, the Rebbe did say the term Dor Hashvii throughout the years a few times, but the main thing that the Rebbe said very often was the last generation of Gauls and first generation of Gula. And the Rebbe said in Tafshin and Aleph, we're almost Chav Chasivin, the Rebbe added in the Ksaviyat Kedesh, that Dereinu Zeh, Anoshim Noshim Etaf is all Sfiras HaMalchus. Why are we Malchus, and who decided based on what Elamai? It's very clear that the Rebbe is the Rabbeim, each Rebbe a Rebbe is not just a leader. In other Kreisen, a Rebbe is the one who's the practical, technical leader of that group. The Rebbe is a Navi Hashem, is Hashem's representative here in this generation to give the theme, to give the charge of this generation. What's our purpose? Where we headed? Where we going? Where we're coming? Asher Yitzim, Asher Yavim. He's the king. He's the leader. He's the one that leads the charge and tells us where we're going, where we're headed. What's the point? Where's the purpose? Where we start, where we end. And the Rebbe told us day one, the first thing he found important to tell us. Didn't say after 40 years that he had so many chassidim, so many Batei Chabad. Day one, there was no chassidim, there was no shluchim, there was no anything. The Rebbe started from day one saying that there's 7 datas, and it started from the Alter Rebbe, and it corresponds to the Avraham Avinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is this generation. And the Rebbe says that everything that was done from the Alter Rebbe to now, to the Frierdiker Rebbe, was all for this generation. So even though the Rebbe says came Deil Mal Tamid, that the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe were obviously much bigger, maybe the Rebbe means there's a concept that the Eibishter told Moshe Rabbeinu that he's the Chabal the Avdin, that about Avraham Avinu, but Afal Pikein, you're the Dor Hashvii, and you're the one that's going to actually do the job to bemala the purpose of creation, which is the Savakadosh Baruch Hu to bring the Eibishter Basi Lagani, like no need to bring the Eibishter back and down Lamata. So the Rebbe says this is the tafkid of this generation. So that tafkid has still not been completed yet. First of all, the tafkid was started, and not only started, but they're very strong, as the Rebbe said throughout the years. The Rebbe said Education Day is a new shlav in this concept. But in Nun Aleph, the Rebbe said Mashiach is already being peiled ba'ilam. The Rebbe said that the creation of the UN started in Tafshin Yud Aleph or whatever was built in. I forgot the details. The Rebbe goes through all the details about the connection with the UN, Lamashal, to the fact to the Nesias of the Rebbe, or the Friedrich Rebbe, whatever the Rebbe uses that lashon. So the generation is Kolzman, that the Rebbe is a Nasi. That's the generation, and the Rebbe, the tafkid of our generation was set clearly by the Rebbe. Until that tafkid is not fully materialized, the generation continues. I mean, I think that's very very straightforward. I mean, what other way could there be?
Okay.
I mean, what's the generation? Because but what did the Rebbe say? The Rebbe said a lashon that even people that were born before Nisi Dereinu were born again after Nisi Dereinu. I think in Tashon Alf, the Rebbe said such a lashon that everyone is born with the Nasi there. So Kapanim, so we all have the Rebbe's the Tata's Yon. So we're either 123 or 75, and we see the world from that perspective, and that's it. And it's after Abayim Shana, so we already have Lev Ladas and Naim Leres. My father always likes to quote what the Rebbe told Bibi Netanyahu in Tavshin Ches. When Bibi Netanyahu went to the Knesset, he was starting his new career. He became an Israeli politician.
I think he said it on the podcast.
Who said? My father said about it. Yeah,
I believe
maybe.
so.
So the Rebbe said, "I'm also in the beginning of my career."
Yeah.
Tashim Ches, the Rebbe in the beginning of the career. It's after the Rebbe wrote the Tzavah. It's after the Rebbe said the Sich of Truma Tashim Ches. You know what does that mean? But the Rebbe's in the beginning of the career, and whatever. Then whatever. I think that we could talk about it after Kamal Talmud. I personally think that the Rebbe wanted the ultimate of both. The Rebbe wanted the ultimate of Gilui, of Milamayla Lamata, and the ultimate of Milamata Lamayla. The Rebbe wanted the ultimate of Avedas HaTachten Mitzad HaTachten, and the ultimate Mitzad the Elyon. And the Rebbe wanted it should be both together. And that's the ultimate. Babi Niseinu Arabim.
Just saying we had both.
The Rebbe was trying to do both. I'm afraid we only had one. Or not. We didn't have enough of the other. Before Gimel Tammuz, it was the ultimate is Galus, Ha'elyon. And the Rebbe wanted that we should be able to be able to enjoy and appreciate this Galus Ha'elyon, and at the same time that we should bring our Tachten with us, that we should come as Tachtenim in our Gidrei Tachtenim and buy in. And however much we bought in, ultimately we were always on the Rebbe's makif. We were always hanging on the Rebbe's makif. And I just think that's. I remember as a kid when I used to watch the video of Chav Chesnes and Aleph, and my father pointed out to me that after the Sikha, the Rebbe tells Reb Zalman Garari a second later, Lepaga V'Leinaga, whatever. And I used to always think to myself, like, I don't understand. If the Chassidim in 770 who screamed out Matzah the second after the Rebbe finished the Sikha, and it looks like they're shell-shocked, and the Rebbe himself is made, he tells Zalman Garari seconds later that no one cares. It had no impact on anybody. But if then no one cared, and basically I was like saying, there's nobody home now, so now today, years later, anyone should care. But whatever. I think when I got older, I think it's very understood, and that's not a question. Yeah, why were they screaming out Masay? Because the Rebbe screamed. The Rebbe said that basically people don't care about Mashiach because they care about it. The Lubavitchers are screaming out Masay Mashiach now because the Rebbe said to do it. So the Rebbe said that we do it. Of course, the Rebbe tells us to care about Mashiach. Did any chassid really care about Mashiach? If I cared, look how many times people on this podcast will say, and there's a truth to that we didn't need Mashiach. We had the Rebbe. Who needed Mashiach when you had this galus of the Rebbe? And then comes the weird question. I think Rabbi Yossi Lu also said the Rebbe's crying, Shana Rabbi Memdalid, about Mashiach, and the Elam is like, what Mashiach? Everything's great. And I think to some degree, I believe that many of us, I think myself included, I think till today we have we're making a mistake in this concept. In other words, when you hear people say that we want Mashiach so we can see the Rebbe again, I think is a failure, a big failure, because obviously, the Rebbe screamed Chavkas Nissen on Aleph. We had the Rebbe standing there, and the Rebbe was really not happy. Was not happy with that situation. So to say that we want Mashiach so we could see the Rebbe again, so we could be by Fabringen again, so I could be by Mincha again, so I could bring my children to see the Rebbe, which, by the way, just now was surfacing around on WhatsApp. But the Rebbe said in Tafshin Zion by Fabringen in Paris, when he went to pick up his mother, he told the Chassidim, he said, I can't understand why you guys are not going to New York to see the Rebbe, to see the Friedrich Rebbe. So the Rebbe said a line. He said, regarding those who saw the Rebbe already, you don't have Gaguim to see the Friedrich Rebbe. And regarding those who never saw the Rebbe, it's a shayla pikuach nefesh. So, like, the fact that we need to see the Rebbe, and the fact that our children, me and you, we both had the schus to see the Rebbe, even though maybe we hardly remember. But so we need to see the Rebbe because we need to see the Rebbe for sure, and our children need to see the Rebbe. It's pashut pikuach nefesh. So, in other words, the fact that we have to see the Rebbe, that's not even a question. And it's an unbelievable tsar, and especially when we think about our children, it's the most painful thing that our kids don't see the Rebbe. You could do a parent's care, that the feeling from parents and their children, it's one of the most painful things, I think, to any parent, that their kids don't see the Rebbe. So in other words, it's in here pikuach nefesh. It's not even a shayla. Yet Mashiach is not just that. First of all, we don't need Mashiach to see the Rebbe. Kiyodua, the Ksavet Kedesh that the Rebbe wrote in Tafshin Yud Aleph, it was printed in Likutei Sichos, Klor, Schwarz auf Weiß. The people ask, I say that we're going to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe will take us to Geula. There's a Seder. First, Bias Mashiach, and then this, and then that, and then Bnei Beis Hamikdash, Kibbutz Goliath, and then Tchias HaMeisim. So how could it be I say that we should see the Rebbe, and then the Rebbe will take us to Geula? So the Rebbe says that's Taka the Seder of Mashiach. But the Rebbe says Tchias HaMeisim of Yichidim, of individuals, Haya was already and will be before Mashiach. In other words, there's a concept of
it's in Nach. There's been Tchias HaMeisim.
Yeah, Rabbi Yael gives a dogma of Kam Rabbi Shachtel Rebbe Zera.
No, it's yeah.
Yeah, but in other words,
it's not only Gemara. The stories in Tanakh about it also. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Rebbe quoted Zutter Shebachum Achayim Mesim. There's a concept that throughout Jewish history there were people that passed away and they came back to life, and that's nothing to do with the coming of Mashiach. It has nothing to do with the Amun and Tchias HaMeisim that's going to be when Mashiach comes. So the Rebbe says very clearly that the Friedrich Rebbe is going to have an individual Tchias HaMeisim, and he's going to come before Mashiach comes, before this Galus HaMashiach. So, whatever. I'm not going to get into details, but anyway, I think so. We don't practically need Mashiach to come to see the Rebbe. That's first of all. So the bakasha that we want to see the Rebbe is not necessarily connected or intertwined with the coming of Mashiach. And we need to see Mashiach because we need to see the Rebbe because it's koach nefesh. Chassidim need to see the Rebbe. Our children need to see the Rebbe. We need to see the Rebbe. Just like it was in Nun Aleph or in Lamed Hey or in Nun Beis. But that's not Mashiach. Mashiach means, as the Rebbe says in Atat Tzava Tafshin Nun Beis, when the Rebbe gave out in Mem Aleph, the Maimer of Mem Aleph, Tafshin Nun Beis, that a Yid is in ganzen zetreselt because there's one pina ba'elam there's no gila likus. The fact that there's one corner of the world that the Eibishter is not revealed, that causes a Yid to be zetreselt. Can't handle it. And I think, how many people relate to that? I should care that there's a pina ba'elam, there's a corner in the world. I'm by the Rebbe Fabringen. What do I care? And even if I go to that farvar from the Winkel, I'm doing it because the Rebbe wants me to, and I know it will give the Rebbe nachas. As someone said in one of the Zooms, that was one of the podcasts, that was the competition to get the Rebbe to smile. In other words, to get the Rebbe to smile is a Gdeis Aveda. It's a very chashuv thing. But ultimately, it wasn't because we bought into what the Rebbe is trying to accomplish. It's because we love the Rebbe so much, and the greatest thing we could have done is to give the Rebbe nachas. That's not a bad thing; it's a very good thing. But did we buy into the Rebbe? Ohov masha ovev, ehev masha ovev. Do you like, In other words, are you in love with what the Rebbe is in love with? The fact that the Rebbe wants Gilul Likus in every single corner of the world, are you into that? Or are you just into that because you love the Rebbe and the Rebbe is into that? And when the Rebbe is saying that we say Ad Masa because Mehaist Mishal and Mishrayit, no, you don't really care about Mashiach. You care because the Rebbe said to care. You don't even care. You're saying the Rebbe said to put on tefillin, put on tefillin. The Rebbe said to say Mashiach. I saw a Sikha Tavshim and Beis. The Rebbe speaks about how when you deal with another Yid, when you reach out to another Yid, and the Rebbe says that the Yid should that in order to have influence on another Yid, it has to be Dvar Mayetzim and Alev. And the Yid, the Jew that you're trying to influence, to Yiddishkeit, to Mitzvos, whatever, feels from you if you mean it or not, if you care for the person or not. Do you love me? When you come and tell me to put on tefillin, to learn to light Shabbos candles, do you care for me or not? And based on how much you care for that person, that's how much influence you'll have in that person. Then the Rebbe said, L'chaira, what's the problem? The Nasi out there told you to do Mitzvos. You're doing Mitzvos. I don't care about the guy I'm talking to. I'm doing what the Rebbe said. But the Rebbe said, the fact of the matter is, people sense if you're just doing it because you're told to do it, or you're doing it because you really care about the person. Then the Rebbe says, if you would really be Mekushanim be'emes, and we really, in other words, I don't remember if the Rebbe spelled it out or not, but the concept is, in other words, if you're really Mekusher, even if you don't care about the other Jew, if the Rebbe's Ratzon becomes your Ratzon, like an Eved Neman, so then you have your own Ratzon. So then when you go speak to a Yid, just inside your Skashos, the Yid will feel the Rebbe's love to him. In other words, if you're really bought to the Rebbe in a real emissary way, in a real way, then when you talk to another Jew, the Jew should feel from you the Rebbe's love. Fact of the matter is, most of us are not on that level. So all the big spitz Chabad and Kosharim that we say, we're only doing it because we care about what the Rebbe says. You're not such a big chassid. So therefore, when you go to the Yid and you stop him on the street or you try to get him to your Chabadas, and the only reason why you're telling it to him is because the Rebbe told you to do it, and mitzad yourself, mitzad your own feelings, you don't give that much about that Jew. He feels it, and the response is in kind. He's not interested. So therefore, the Rebbe says, because most of us are not real chassidim, are not really batel, therefore, in order to influence another Yid, the Yid has to feel that we really love him, we really care for him. So, in other words, I think the same thing could about Mashiach. You have to that for Mashiach that when the Rebbe says Ad Masai means you can't handle it. You're asking, you want it to end, and that means is that you have to buy in. Just like the Rebbe screams Ad Masai Metanemes, that we have to some degree really care for this. And I think that's what the Rebbe said Chavkas Nissen, and that was the Rebbe's frustration. And I think it was very hard for a chassid experiencing. The Rebbe said many times, it's in Shkin Hergish, that by tzaddikim like the Rashbi, the Churban Beis HaMikdash didn't exist. When you were in the Rashbi's presence, you didn't feel the Churban. When you were in the Rebbe's presence, when you were around the Rebbe, you didn't feel the Churban. You didn't feel the need for Mashiach. And these are not fake things. These are real things, as they state. And yet, Alpha became the Rebbe's not. When you're on the Rebbe's level, the Rebbe's not happy with that. The Rebbe wants to take this. In other words, the Rebbe said in Tafshin Yud Aleph that what's afatzam yonas chutza. As soon as you go over the skupa, as soon as you go over the, how do you say a skupa in English?
The doorpost.
The doorpost of the Rebbe, that's already chutza. It's missing in the Lesheves in Tiferes Adam Sheves Bayis of the Rebbe. So anywhere that's not Meir, the Rebbe's Gilui in his way how it is in his room, in the Rebbe's Dal Damas, that's already chutza. And we have to make, in other words, like the Rebbe said, Machdar Yisrael, the goal is to make every piece of this earth the Rebbe's room. That every piece of this earth should be the 770. It should be the Beis HaMikdash, should be. And there's a sikha that really talks to me about this concept. I feel that sometimes, Gilul Likus, do I care about Gilul Likus? There's a sikha from Zeis Chanukah, it's a famous Sabringen, Tavshim and Vav. People is very famous because the Rebbe spoke then about the story of the Svarim court case. Then you say the sticky things about it. The Rebbe also said a very powerful sikha about Shleimus Aretz, which actually was since October 7th was translated by Jem and was in Sparsan. That whole sikha b'Shleimusa. Towards the end of that sikha, which obviously everyone should watch that sikha. It's a very powerful sikha if you didn't see it yet. Regarding Pashat, our situation today and whatever. Anyway, but at the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe says, why am I screaming? Like, what's the point? In other words, who's listening and who's is this accomplishing anything? The Rebbe gives three answers. The Rebbe says, first of all, because es tut weh schreit man. That's first of all. It's Pasha tut weh, the matzav of Yidden in Yisrael.
When it
It
hurts,
hurts. It hurts. He's screaming. Second of all, the Rebbe said, you see Jewish blood being spilled. You have to do something about it. You can't just stand there idly and do nothing. Stam. I think for each one of us, when we hear the Yidden are being killed and shechted in the streets in Israel, it has to make a zazua. We have to scream. Well, what's going on over here? And third of all, the Rebbe said, every Yid is a balach halemus. We all are inklach of Yosef. Nei katzen Yosef. Yosef was a balach halemus. What did we do, Yosef? Yosef had gechalimt and gesessen in Tfissa. He dreamed and he dreamed and he sat in jail. And what happened at the end? That he became the prime minister or whatever. He became the second in command to Egypt, which the Mitzrayim was the superpower of the world at that time. And it came to a point that no one was able to lift a hand or a foot without Yosef, without listening to Yosef. So in other words, Yosef dreamed and dreamed, and Lapayel became the king. Basically, he took over. And the Rebbe said, every Yid is a balach halemus. If it wouldn't be for being balach halemus, you would never be able to handle these surim of Galus. You're never able to handle these surim. So b'meila, and then the Rebbe says, and then the Rebbe smiles. Nita zachaba chalim, as it's coming outside. And in ganz Eretz Yisrael wird nicht heben a Hand oder a Fuß anfragen on meine Schuss. Das azach chalim fällt mir nicht ein. That the Rebbe saying basically, I don't have a dream. There'll come a time that I don't remember. Don't quote me. It could be I'm saying a few words wrong, but I don't believe that. I don't such a dream that there'll come a time that no one will lift a hand or a foot without asking by me. Such a dream, and the Rebbe laughs. I don't have, but I was like that. I hope my dream, basically, what is my dream? That everything I'm saying will bring a shmira mamashis on Yidden Eretz Yisrael. That there'll be an additional protection because of what I'm screaming now. My dream is that it'll actually have an influence, and Jews will be more safe in Israel. But to me, what I took from that sikha was when I saw it for the first time, and every time I see it, the fact that the Rebbe is shaylul, I don't have such a dream. Like, in other words, such a wild dream that no one will do anything without lifting their hand and their foot. Even such a dream I don't have. I felt that's our dream. That's what a chassid should dream. At least that's my dream. That became my dream of the Messianic era. That as me hebt nicht a hand or a fuss. I mean, you have to. Let's go back to Yosef. Without Yosef. Yosef was or Shlomo Melech, the Malchus Sheva came to that is the vision of Moshiach. That so in other words, how for people that have a hard time taking l'shenis of Maimon and Chassidus and caring about it that much, because we like steak and other things. So I think that the vision that, in other words, that if you're a real chassid of the Rebbe, if you really love the Rebbe, you really care for the Rebbe, how could you suffice with the fact that you need to see the Rebbe, with you need your children to see the Rebbe? How could you sit? How could you be? And I think that's what bothers the Rebbe also. I mean, that's what the Rebbe was screaming. In other words, there's a speech that Adin Evan Yisrael spoke, Yud Shvat Tafshanun, which many people were upset about in 770. He says, everyone's all happy. Hashem Matev Chalkeinu, Arbaim Shana. He said, where's all the millions of Jews? The Rebbe wants millions of Jews to be here. The Rebbe wants all of the Yidden to be here, all of humanity. In other words, Arbaim Shana, the Rebbe wants something a lot bigger than this. So, in other words, Azoi, and he says that, Mishrei the Rebbe schlaf nicht. That's not, why is the Rebbe schlaf nicht? Chassidim schlafen. Again, I'm not getting into justifying that speech, but there's a certain truth. Whether or not that speech was good or not, there's a certain truth to what he's saying. In other words, we have to lose sleep, that the Rebbe is losing sleep over Mashiach. And we weren't. There's a video of the dancing of after Hey Tevis, Mem Zion. So Hey Tevis was Tuesday. Shabbos, the Rebbe spoke very strongly about Mashiach. Very, very strong about Admasai, Atkikach, the Rabbanim, and Asar B'Tevis made a psak din about Mashiach to come. They gave it to the Rebbe when the Rebbe was on the way out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's videos of the dancing of Matzah Shabbos after that Farbringen. So all the dancing is till then was at Natzach. That night there was a lot of Admasai. You have guys noch ganze Woche Mashke, jumping up and down. Admasai. So someone grabs the mic and I don't know, whatever. Someone grabs the mic and says, "Keiner," he says, "Keiner darf will nicht Mashiach. Es gwen die Natzach. Es waren kommen zurück. Wir sind alle zufrieden." He said, "There's the ein Eden the Welt was will Mashiach. Das Lubavitcher Rebbe." Again, I don't know who it is, but I think the word was very true. Everyone's screaming "God Masay." How was Haksta Chinik? You're with big smiles on your face screaming "God Masay."
There's only one person that wants Mashiach, and that's the Rebbe.
Yeah, the only person here in this room, in this movement that cares about Mashiach is the Lubavitcher Rebbe right now. In other words, and like again, I'm not Chas v'Shalom putting down anyone that was dancing Hey Tavis, and I'm not saying I think would do anything different, but there's a certain kudah here that the Rebbe wanted the world. The Rebbe wanted to take over the world. The Rebbe wanted the Eibishter, the Rebbe Tachtenim should happen. And Chassidim were happy. We were content with the fact that we had a place by our Kafas, and then we had a place by the Bracha, and it was about us. Kivas Alakim Li Toiv. That's a beautiful thing. It's a high level, but it's Yeshus. At the end of the day, it's Yeshus. We weren't fully and this is all Haggadah to say that I think today, unfortunately, that's the only way. In other words, the Rebbe said that the reason why Yud Shvat happened was the Melech was Mashlachai Meneged to win the war, about the Friedrich Rebbe. And one of the years the Rebbe said that there's Chayev HaGluyim, the revealed life. In other words, it's not Chas v'Shalom that the Melech really passes away. He throws away his Chayev HaGluyim in order to get the Nitzachon HaMelchama. The Nitzachon HaMelchama is so negeh in the Atzmos HaMelech. The winning the war is so ingrained in the essence of the king that his revealed life is less worth it than that. That the only way that if the Rebbe said Chavches Nissen that it's up to us, and we had a hard time stomaching that at the moment. Obviously, I mean, we're standing in the aftermath, right? It's almost 31 years later. That basically now is the time. There's no short. In other words, we can't anymore. In other words, we can't say, oh, we have Mashiach already, so we have to need Kabbalah sale from Mashiach. We have to basically realize that we have to buy into the Rebbe's mission. We have to buy in and really believe in Mashiach and care about Mashiach and care about what Mashiach means and what it means to us and what it means to the world, and be dedicated to that, not just because we want our life to be better, not just physically but spiritually, not just because we want to see the Rebbe, not just because we want our kids to see the Rebbe. That's a very valid and important and existential kuach nefesh need for us. But in addition, we have to buy into the Rebbe's mission, into the idea of Dor Hashvii, that there should be not one pina ba'elam that's not durchgenommen with the Rebbe, that's not durchgenommen with Chassidus, that's not durchgenommen with the Kavanah Elikis, that's not aware of the Rebbe, that doesn't know about the Rebbe, that's not following the Rebbe's teachings, that's not learning the Rebbe's Torah, Bnei Yisrael, Elam. That and we're not talking dreams. This is a reality. President Javier, the president of Argentina, a non-Jew, just showed up to Eretz Yisrael. What was his gift to the Prime Minister of Israel? A picture of the Prime Minister with the Rebbe. And the Prime Minister of Israel makes a speech in the Knesset that he went into the private home of the president of Argentina, and what was on the wall? A picture of the Rebbe. And then the speaker of the Knesset quotes the Rebbe in his speech in honor of the president of Argentina, and the president of Israel speaks about the Rebbe in honor of the president of Argentina. And then the next hours after the president of Argentina leaves Israel, which the prime minister of Israel told him that the Rebbe is a prophet, minutes later starts the war in Iran. Where was the president of the United States, who right now is talking about getting involved in the war in Iran? He went to the Rebbe for a bracha when he was running for elections. The point basically is that the Rebbe is we're talking about what the Rebbe said in a natural way, Mashiach coming, that one person will have an influence on all the nations of the world. I mean, it's happening in front of our very eyes, and years after Gimel Tammuz. What does it mean? Why doesn't President Javier ask, is it Dor Hashvii now? What does it mean? But the Rebbe said the last generation of goals. I didn't hear that he asked that question. And I actually heard Rabbi Greenblatt said that he heard from his Eidim as a connection to President Javier that every day he looks at the Rebbe's picture for 15 minutes and he's mizbeinin, he meditates. So President Javier is a feierdige chassid from Rebbe. And it's not, we're talking about presidents. I know people by me, non-Jews by me, that touched the Rebbe's Torah, and a week later they became the biggest. Actually, I'm right. I was talking in the beginning. I'm starting in a few weeks a 12 episode podcast with an important, very, very important organization in town, dedicated to the Rebbe's letters, fully dedicated to the Rebbe's letters from the book Letters for Life. And this was not my idea. This wasn't something I pulled off. This was something that she wanted. Someone that's not Jewish, a leader of a very important organization, prominent organization, and she was so inspired by the Rebbe's letters that she feels that this is going to be a new podcast. So it's the concept of Leben Yavin is truken, that next to the ocean it's dry, as Baruch Hashem niskayim by us, I think b'milui, and it's pashut, it's a shad. It's like the world. There's no one in the world that sees it this way besides, I think, some of us. And I think each one. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm pointing fingers at myself. I think we have to pashut realize Mitzvos handles, and I think your brother-in-law mentioned on a podcast that he sees the many shluchim, that he helps. Very often, a lot of them is pashut missing in confidence, self-confidence, in who they are and what they represent. I really believe that. I know it for myself. I mean, you look at the first shluchim of the Rebbe from the Yuds, Shlomo Kunyan, Gershom El Grelik, my grandfather, whatever, other people. I mean, these guys were from day one. You look at the Rebbe's maskiros; they went with such a breitkeit, with such confidence. Why? Because when you were in the Rebbe's presence, the Rebbe lifted, the Rebbe picked you up. You were the king of the world. You represented the Rebbe. There was nothing more. And so today you need avodah. So we have to pashut sit down. If you're a shliach or if you're a chassid that's really a shliach of the Rebbe, every yid is a shliach. Pashut to mizbeinin, to think about who the Rebbe is. Who do we stand for? What's chassidus? What's chassidus Chabad? What's chassidus Bechlal? What's Yiddishkeit? What's the Eibishter? What's the Rebbe? And what's the Rebbe of our generation? Who is he? What does he stand for? What does he represent? And I was chosen. I just saw someone posted a sikha. The Rebbe said how from all the billion people, the Eibishter chose a few people and gave them his Torah. Out of all the billions of people, the Eibishter chose us and made us Chassidei Chabad and made us in Dor Hashvii and gave us the Rebbe. Out of all the Rebbeim of Chassidei Chabad, gave us the last Rebbe, the Rebbe of Dor Hashvii. And the Rebbe of Dor Hashvii takes each one of us and chooses each one of us and says, your job and your mission in this world is to bring the ultimate purpose of creation into this world. And it's not pshat, a yid in Russia, you have to believe is the concept of Dira B'Tachtenim. We see it happening in front of our eyes. The world is changing as we speak. Presidents and leaders of the world are coming to the Rebbe. These things didn't happen 35 years ago when we saw the Rebbe, when life was nice and dandy in Lubavitch standards. Dafke years after Gimel Tammuz, 31 years later, the Rebbe's influence is heilig v'gever. You think Javier has pressure to be a chassid of the Rebbe? Anyone's convincing Javier? Anyone told Javier he's going to be a shvans or not be a mekusher if he's not going to come to the oil? So someone told that to Trump. I mean, what do you think? They have a peer pressure. They have Jewish mom's guilt. They have a mashpia telling them they're not going to be cool enough. I mean, what do you think is happening here? And what about all the Yidden that are learning Chassidus? The amount of Yidden that are learning Chassidus today, the amount of Yidden that are connecting to Lubavitch. And I speak to them. I speak to them clear. I ask them very questions I don't want to say over here about things that I would think that would deter them from coming to Chassidus. And not the famous things that many people think. The things that bother a lot of the Frum Olam is not the things that many people may think. And I ask them why, and you hear from them. You hear why they're coming. They're coming for the emes. They have no pressure. They have no peer pressure to be a Lubavitcher. They have pressure not to be a chassid. So we see how the world is changing in front of our eyes, and the fact that what does it mean Dor Hashvii? These are dvarim pshutim. In other words, what you needed, maybe you needed emunah on Dalet. 31 years ago, maybe you needed faith, you needed to believe. Today, who needs emunah? I don't need any emunah whatsoever. that the Rebbe is alive and the Rebbe is with us, and the Rebbe not only is with us like he was then, but he's midi shana b'shana, as the Rebbe said in Tashrim Hey, midi shana b'shana wird noch mehr lebendiger, noch mehr starker, noch mehr aktiv, and it's not so many times we love the Zara B'chaim, the more shluchim, that makes the Rebbe. No, the Rebbe is alive, and that's why Zara B'chaim is alive.
The Rebbe said once,
He
"Ma
said
hu
it.
b'chaim, av zare b'chaim."
But we see it. It's not pshat that we're making it live on. The Rebbe is making it live, and that's why we're alive, and that's why we're able to go and touch other people. Anyway, it's so simple. We have to just go out of our little Lubavitch box, out of our little and break out of our golos pnimi, which as the Rebbe also said in Chav Ches Nisan and Aleph. Break out of our golos pnimi, learn our Ma'amer Chassidus, learn the Rebbe's Torah, and connect to the Rebbe and see the Rebbe from the Rebbe's glasses, which I think is another thing. I think that but I think one of the things that I feel sometimes that is missing by many people. I want to take that back. Not many people. I think sometimes it could be missing by some. Is the inyan of Farbringens, of the Rebbe's Farbringens. Say watching it, say listening to it, say learning the Hanachas, and I think the reason why sometimes it's overlooked is because before Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's Farbringen, you joined or you listened to the hookup, or if after Shabbos you weren't in town, you read the Hanacha. But what did you learn? What was the Rebbe's Torah you learned? You learned the Likutei of that week. But today, when the Farbringens are not like that, right? We have to make an effort to learn the Farbringen or to listen or to watch the Farbringen. And let's face it, Likutei Sichos is a aricha, the Sichos is nerach officially with the mind of to the Olam HaTorah. So there's a certain style of how the Rebbe wants the Likutei Sichos to be done that it should be appropriate for the Olam HaTorah. Yeah. So it's 100%. It's the Rebbe's Torah, 1,000,000%. The Rebbe done mashkiah in them, and the Rebbe invested in it, v'chulu v'chulu. But if you want to experience the Rebbe teaching you, the Rebbe inspiring you, we have the Rebbe talks unfiltered, unaltered, direct, fresh, straight, yasher mepia gvura. You have to experience the Rebbe's Farbringen. You have to. There's a way how the Rebbe speaks. There's a style that the Rebbe teaches, and that's what I think. I think when you go through a Farbringen, a Shabbos Farbringen, the first 2 sichos, the 3 sichos, the Maimer, the Rashi, the Rambam, the Pirkei Avos, the whatever, the whole thing, you go through the entire Farbringen. The Rebbe, and you do it week after week after week, on a consistent basis. The Rebbe teaches you. The Rebbe Pasha takes you by the hand like a teacher, and teaches you how to think, how to look at things, how to see things, how to view things, the clarity that you get from the sidetrack things, from the Maimer HaMuzgers, from the Rebbe's style, the Rebbe's cook. You start seeing the world from the Rebbe's glasses. You see the world from the Rebbe's glasses, and anything you learn from the Rebbe's Torah. I think very much from the Farbringen, the whole Farbringen, from beginning to the end, all the different sichos, the Rebbe gives you how he thinks. The Rebbe, he puts himself in his sichos. Nafshe yatsa b'dabre. He pasha teaches you and he uplifts you. And when you learn of Farbringen, I mean, I know for myself, I'm uplifted. I pasha feel like I'm walking in a different world. The Rebbe just picked me up and brought him into his world. And when you're on the Rebbe's world, all of a sudden, there's no manias v'ikuvim. All of a sudden, there's no hakbalas. There's nothing could stand in the way of the Eibishter. I mean, just when we were Bachrim, sometimes people used to make jokes of the people that are learn the sichos of or listen to the sichos of Mi Yehudi and Shlomo Saretz, as if it's like you're into the politics, you're into the action.
I think the Rebbe once said something like that.
Yeah,
that there's those that only wake up by those sichos. Yeah.
And the Rebbe, I think they say the Rebbe was hated off on the Rebbe to put those sichos in the back, not to put it in the regular Noach. Bottom line is the Rebbe spent a lot of time talking about these topics, and I could say for myself, the amount of Yiras Shamayim and the amount of Emunah Hashem that I got from those sichos, hearing the Rebbe scream Dvar Avaya Zu Alocha, Shulchan Aruch. I mean, you can't hear those words and it doesn't get into your kishkas. You push a shekzich for halach and Shulchan Aruch. The Rebbe screams, Dvara vaya zu halacha. Keitze shel yud of Shulchan Aruch. When we hear the Rebbe say that, you probably start believing and living that the entire world is really totally in a keitze shel yud of a din and Shulchan Aruch. That the whole world, what the whole Shinchav testing. The Rebbe takes a halacha from Shulchan Aruch and makes us like the whole world is going to plot. The whole world will go this way or go that way because halacha and Shinchav test and Hilchos Shabbos and Shulchan Aruch. Boom, like that. That's the you say the Zalman the Chacham. It's halacha and Shulchan Aruch. No, the entire world, not just the world. Israeli policy, with America, with Washington, Shinchav test. That's the beginning, end, and middle. Such a concept comes from first of all, it can only come from a person that really, really believes in the Eibishter, really, really believes in Torah, and really believes that every single movement of this world is totally in the Eibishter made the world, the Pinkisais, the Difterais is Torah. Anyway, the only way we could see ourselves live, first of all, personally, as a Yid, as a Chassid, in our personal lives, to keep halacha, to be Yidden the way the Eibishter wants, to believe in the Eibishter, to believe in Torah, to believe in Mitzvos, to be Chassidim, and to bring this out to the world, to go to the world and influence other Jews, influence non-Jews, and make them closer to the Eibishter. We have to see that the reality of the world is Torah. The reality of the world is Gedlichkeit, is a likus, and this you get from the Rebbe, and B'chlal we get it from the Rebbe. But I really think that from the Rebbe's Farbringans, there's no Likutei Sichos of a Yehudi Sicha. There's no Likutei Sichos of a Shleimus Aretz Sicha. But what the Rebbe does over there, it's something that I think that the Havdalah ben Yisrael Amim to that should be, people love it nowadays, the talking points, Jewish pride. What Jewish pride? Stuff I bring and listen to a Sicha about Shleimus Aretz, about Yehudi. That's Jewish pride. That's what real Jewish pride means, not the nonsense that we see from some certain organizations. Jewish pride means that the Eibishter was Beicher, B'chiras Ha'atzmos and Ayid, and Beicher in Eretz Yisrael, and Beicher in Torah, and that's Jewish pride. So yeah, anyway, and so that comes to Mashiach and comes to all the Inyanim is So we need to listen to that. We need to strengthen ourselves in the Rebbe's, learning the Rebbe's Torah, and to listen to the Rebbe's Farbringans, and to learn the Rebbe's Farbringans, and to really start taking on, if the Rebbe says, to really start believing in the Rebbe's cause, to really start believing in the Rebbe's mission, and I think turning back to Olam, I think that this is something that is one of the ways how that the Rebbe, to me at least, the concept of Moshiach, the fact that Moshiach has to take over the whole world, right? Moshiach is going to be physically a melech, that the whole entire world will be public, will be, and I think one of those ways that's a big bitui to that. And again, back to about shluchim's confidence. I speak to shluchim, I speak to friends of mine that are shluchim. The Amalek shluchim from 30 years ago. Each one goes to a place of thousands of Jews and whatever, and that's small places. A small place that have 6,000 Jews, a small place. But today shluchim are going to places mamish hundreds of 100 yidden, 200 yidden, 300 mamish, very, very small places. And sometimes shluchim, and I know for myself, we could feel lonely, forget about it, but bored. What do we do? And when we already do something, only a few people show up, and we feel like we're doing not. What I learned for myself, and I matzia to my chaverim, is that we should stop looking at ourselves that way. We're not here to deal with just a few hundred Jews, and if the few hundred Jews don't show up, first of all, that itself is dayenu. But it's more than that. We are the Rebbe's ambassador to this city. The city has 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever this area has. Each person that's in this place is your achrayis. Is your achrayis to reach out to them. La'avdi kulam shachem echad. You are the representative of Gedlichkeit to make sure that these people are going to be ready for Mashiach, which is through making sure that all those kids have in their schools moment of silence, which is making sure that every one of those kids have a tzedakah pushka, which is making sure that all those kids celebrate the Rebbe's birthday and and not just kids, all people, which is v'chulu. So all of a sudden, the job is endless, and Al Derech said the resources are endless. You don't have to only ask the 5.5 balabatim, Jewish balabatim, to give money to Chabad. All of a sudden, what do you mean? If I'm influencing thousands of children to have a moment of silence, who should be paying for that? So and the Rebbe said by dealing with Shav Mitzvah and Noach will be financially beneficial for Yidden. So all of a sudden your whole perspective changes, your whole horizon changes. durch dir kommen alle Hashviis from the Siderenu to this area. You represent the Rebbe. There's nothing. You're the most important person in town. You're the most dignified person in town. You're the most busiest person, the most chashuv person in town. And again, it's not about you. It's not about building up your own ego. Adrabah. The more it's about you, the worse you do. The more it's about ourselves, then the worse of a job we'll do. The more we remind and master what we represent. But b'shas we have a recognition and we have bittul. And we realize that we represent the Rebbe. We represent the Nasi Hader. We represent the Shebei Bachar Hashem to be the Nasi Hader of this generation, and we represent him. And it's not about you. Then there's nothing that could stop you. Then you have infinite keiches, you have infinite capabilities, you have infinite talents, you have infinite possibilities, and there's no door that should be closed for you. And even when a door is closed for you, it's only that's temporary. And the Rebbe durchführen. When you have that perspective, then you don't get turned down so badly. You don't get defeated so much, and a no is not so hard to handle, and whatever. So it's gonna happen. The Rebbe's gonna just like till now. There are things that the Rebbe is working on, and the Rebbe is still working on it. L'mashal Shleimus Haaretz is one of the things the Rebbe screamed about for years. Was the Rebbe deterred? The Rebbe was screaming for years about Shleimus Haaretz, and Israel did what the Rebbe wanted. No, and October 7th happened. The Rebbe was screaming for years to prevent October 7th, and it happened. But the Rebbe is told emes is emes, and the Rebbe is going to, and the Rebbe is screamed by Fabring is emes meres titzmach. It's going to prevail. Nebuch, it took this long, but it's going to succeed. The Rebbe has time. Not the Rebbe's time, but the Rebbe, it's going to happen. One way or another, it's going to work. It's going to happen. So therefore, the same thing in our own shlichus. This doesn't work. That doesn't work. It's gonna prevail. And why is it going to prevail? Not because you're very powerful, you're very smart, you're very talented, or because no, because you represent the truth, you represent the emes, and the emes will always be menatzeach.
Okay, so we should buy in.
Yeah, we should buy in, and we should be zeichet to see the Rebbe, and it's pekuach nefesh ka'amurt. We should be zeichet to see the Rebbe, and before Gimel Tammuz, and we should be able to see the Rebbe physically, and we should be able to see that the Rebbe's kavanah of the Rebbe Tachtenim of Dor Hashvii should be neskayim b'milui, and the entire world should be v'yedek al pol ki al tepalte, and v'nigla kved Hashem v'ro kol basar yachtov, and the Rebbe will teach us Torah Chadasha, and v'ivne misamikdash mekeme v'kabes nitzchi Yisrael, v'chulu
Part of Mamish.
Amen.
All right, Yeshakech Mendy. Tzlach Rabbi.
Kech Rabbi Yosef.